I know you told us before you're going away, where it's hot, and then you're proud of it.
Because they have no way of knowing on that if the plan is gone, what's going on.
Because it was supposed to be
bring
an
that
easement, to give rights to get through there, so.
Okay, we'll have, where's my agenda there? Okay, we're going to have the Pledge Allegiance to the flag, and then we'll have a moment of silence for our men that are stationed overseas and whatnot, and go for that, and women. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, first we have to read this. Whitehall Township has an obligation to affirmatively further fair housing and to review all land use applications in accordance with federal civil rights statutes. This includes taking meaningful actions that overcome patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities free from barriers that restrict access to opportunity based on protected characteristics. The township, in its land use decisions, does not discriminate against persons based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, or familial status, and reviews all land use applications in accordance with federal civil rights statutes. Public comments made on the basis of bias and stereotype concerning people within these protected classes will not be taken into consideration by the township in its deliberations. Thank you. Trying to do too many things here. Okay, the first thing we have is the approval of the minutes for regular meeting June 10th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Scarfaro.
I have a second.
I'll second it, Pelagian.
And Mr. Secretary, can,
Got an addition to it, to the minutes? On item number 2, if we could just add that the cameras were discussed for the Mickley Prided Farm and other township facilities, and that the policy that would be drafted would apply to all cameras at all township facilities. And I'm going to abstain from this vote because I was not at the general meeting. I was on a work assignment.
any further additions, deletions, comments?
Just comment too that I'll be abstaining. I was also absent.
Okay, so leaves it up
Hey.
to us 4 people. Okay, Mr. Secretary, can you poll the board?
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I should have started with Commissioner Scarfaro. Commissioner Scarfaro is a yes. Commissioner Pelagian?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder was a yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren is an abstention, as well as Commissioner Tia. That leaves President Sloniker.
Aye.
Okay, it passes with 4 yes and 2 abstentions, 1 absent.
Courtesy of the floor, comments for non-agenda items will be strictly monitored to no more than 3 minutes per person. Okay.
First is Miss Lori Ann Fainall.
Lorianne Fainall, 3107 North 3rd Street. Oh, I'm
This
sorry.
thing makes noises.
Good introduction, Lorianne. Make you feel special.
Thank you.
Good, you're good, Lorianne.
Should I state my address again? No. I'm not gonna, what I wrote on there, I'm not gonna be able to speak about because not everybody's present, but I just want to commend our first responders that responded to an accident that was near my house. They were there within, 2 minutes. So thank you to our volunteers, Mr. Builder. I know your whole family was there, pretty much. It was a pretty bad accident. Luckily, my husband and I were spared. It could have been a head-on collision. We were 30 seconds later. We would have been a head-on collision for our family. I want to say the Whitehall Parkway, the first night was great. I loved it. My husband loved it. We're probably going to do another event. But I do have one concern. Alcoholic beverages. Are we going to be allowing people with coolers with alcoholic beverages coming into that area. My only concern is, one, if anything's coming in, is that bottles will be thrown into the parkway if they're allowed to bring their own coolers filled with alcohol. That's one of my concerns about that, because, so I'm not sure.
Defer to Attorney Gross. I spoke to him this morning about this. Attorney Gross?
So the township, the township use of the property is by a permit. I mean, the general rules for the park are still in effect, so it's
That's what
not-
I'm asking. So I was just concerned about people wandering, through the woods with bottles, of alcohol. That's one of my concerns. We don't say park get ruined by beer bottles, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. That's all. But everything was good. Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Bruce Charles.
Good evening, everybody. Bruce Charles, 76 Madison Lane. I'm following up on my comments from last month. First of all, regarding the tree issues in our neighborhood that have been causing power outages, wondering if that's been discussed or taken any action taken on it. If not, I certainly invite any or all of you out to my property to see what precipitated me attending this meeting in the first place. Secondly, a possible consideration of an ordinance for senior citizen residents to opt out of the recently passed tax for land preservation. I'm for land preservation, and I'm also for our library down the street. But these little nickel and dime taxes take a toll on people, and they do mean the library tax is a significant tax, and this added one adds another burden. So that's something I'd like to ask the board to consider. Wouldn't cost that much, and it was sold as a small fee. Thirdly, fireworks. Legislatures, our state legislatures landed on our local communities quite a mess. And what we went through this past weekend and this past week is ridiculous. There's no way for a civilized society to live. It leaves it on our police department and neighbors and who knows what with that mess of fireworks. There's no way to celebrate a 4th of July. The electronics and shredding event, I want to thank everybody for that. I think it's one heck of a program. I make use of it probably every year. And I want to thank those who were responsible for putting it together. And lastly, I just had a comment, and I'm not sure if it's at this part of the agenda or not, on the Berkheimer. Is that comments here, or do I wait until the agenda item?
It's coming up a little bit later, so you
Okay.
can comment on that.
So I'll be able to comment at that time?
You can do it now or later, it's up to
Well,
you.
I'll comment now if I have some time. It's just very brief. What are the net annual cost savings projected to be? And if there are, and if that issue was handled in the tax office before and there's significant savings, maybe we should consider reducing headcount in the tax office. Again, I don't know the details of it, but that's my initial gut feeling when I read things like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
That's it for the list here.
I would like to, I was late coming, I'm sorry.
Up to the mic then, and your name it, you know the procedure.
Sorry, life got away from me today.
Okay.
Andre Hoagland, 51 Kemet Avenue. What I want to discuss, the gentleman's not here that I want to talk about, but Warren, Mr. Warren wasn't here last time, and I just wanted to say, did you get the camera situation resolved? Did you remove the cameras from the parks, or do you have something written that you wrote to us as a town saying that if anything comes up on those cameras, if you cover, like if somebody happens to be relieving themselves, or you have children making out and having sex in front of your camera, what is your policy and procedure? Who do you take this film to?
As you all requested last month, I am working on a policy, and you should have it on your August agenda. We've been gathering information from the administration, policy is drafted, but it wasn't ready for tonight's meeting.
I know you wanted more, but
No, I
You-
don't,
you
I
have-
don't
you
want
have to
more. I
take
didn't
your time to
understand what the
look at
man
it.
said. Y'all discussed something. I wasn't present at that discussion, so I don't have a clue what he's talking about.
well, no, he has to look up what we can and cannot do with regards
Is
to
the camera still in
cameras.
place?
I don't know which camera you're talking
The
about.
one that was brought up, that Mr. Warren, our commissioner, had a personal camera, that he was the only one that had access to the SD card or anything else before anybody else, okay, could look at it. We've already had a $140,000 lawsuit with sexual harassment from a mayor. Now, that meeting, they said a commissioner has a personal private camera in a park, in one of our parks. That's what I'm asking. Did he remove his personal camera from the park? Because unless he has documentation from someone giving him permission, if something comes up on that camera, like if somebody accidentally does something in front of it, and then they realize there's a camera, and then it leads back to the township and a commissioner, will we be sued as a town because he represents us as a commissioner? And if that's so, then the camera should immediately be taken down, and then we'll discuss him putting it back up, not us opening ourselves as a town up for another lawsuit for personal reasons. I mean, what's the justification for the camera? What is it doing for the town? How does it help us as a whole? Is it for personal, private, individual use? And then why is our solicitor, that the town probably pays, not him personally, why are they even involved with a personal camera?
Because of the question you just posed to us. Is
It's
it
a
something
personal
that-
camera.
Again, is it something that is allowable or not allowable? Because you think it might be one way or the other does not make it so.
Okay.
He's the one who has to look up in what
Okay,
statutes.
so I can go start posting cameras in the
Nobody said
park.
what you're saying now.
I don't need a lawyer.
That's the idea of why he's going to go ahead and check out what we can and cannot do.
Okay, so that's Warren's personal lawyer for his personal camera?
That's not true.
Or are we, as a
That's
town,
not true.
paying lawyers for personals? I'm asking you a question,
And I
sir.
gave you the answer, it's not something that you want to accept. How can I give an answer, or how can he give an
Okay.
answer without fully looking
Sir,
into the
who is
situation?
paying for this research, sir, of this camera situation? Is Mr. Warren paying for out of his pocket? If this is a personal camera?
This is a camera from somebody. Just because a commissioner does not make him not a citizen. See,
Okay.
this is, again, everybody likes to, with the people up here, oh, you're up here. But then with other things, oh, you're down here. You should listen to what we, again, he's going to look up to see what can be done. I, myself, would think that being a commissioner would mean nothing with this. You might think it does. I do not know.
I don't think it means nothing for me personally, but like I was told, I could be sued for asking a question that came from a solicitor from this town through the mayor. So if I can be sued for asking a worker a question by my township, I don't understand how Mr. Warren can have a camera that was linked back to his private. So did we as a town pay for that camera? Because I was led to believe that it was his personal property.
This is his personal property. And again.
So why is
how
our
many-
township
okay,
lawyer
and now let's look
looking
at this a
into this?
different way. Suppose there's 3 people out there that have cameras out there because they like to look at the wildlife. And generally, that's why most of these cameras are out there.
Okay.
So they can see birds and deer and whatnot.
Okay.
And so what would his be different? And again, until we get an answer from him, there's no reason to further discuss this because we don't know. You're making assumptions.
Okay.
I'm not making assumptions. I'm just saying I don't know.
Okay, but basically you just opened up Whitehall Township to
And
have
again, that's
anybody
your-
who has a
that's your
camera, wait a minute,
opinion.
anybody who
It's
has a
your
camera
opinion. Your
to
3
come
minutes
in our
are up.
parks.
Your 3 minutes are up.
And place a
And
camera.
again, you went a little
Oh
bit
my
further.
goodness.
Oh, my goodness. It's, again, we're trying to,
Nobody can see that but me.
no,
Wow.
everybody can see your point of view. It's just that
I have
sometimes
wildlife
you
cameras.
don't
They're in my
like-
backyard, sir.
Sometimes you
They're
don't
in my
like the
backyard.
answers that are
Personal
given
property.
because they're not finalized.
I don't think we can just go
Okay, any further? Public hearing and voting on ordinances. Bill number 24-2024. An ordinance authorizing the acceptance of a proposal for the removal and replacement of flooring for the Whitehall Senior Center building, in accordance with Section 3.20 in the Home Rule Charter, which requires authorization of acquisitions in excess of $25,000 by ordinance. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Warren. Or-
I guess we did
Yeah.
it joint.
We can tag team it.
We'll tag team it. I don't care either way.
Any comments or questions?
It's a project long overdue. I think I agree with Mr. Snyder that this facility gets a lot of use, that we should be catering to our seniors, and it sounds like this work is being done in a fashion that's going to be sustainable. They're ripping up the entire floor, not just putting an overlay on it. So any imperfections, I believe, are going to be addressed so that this floor lasts longer than 10 years, like the last one.
Anything, Todd?
Yeah, this is my government 101 ordinance where I learned how to put it through and how long it takes. So yeah, that's what it was. I'm good.
Any further? Okay, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Snyder?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarfaro?
Yes.
Commissioner Peligian?
Yes.
Commissioner Tia is a yes. President Sloniker?
Aye.
Bill passes 6-0.
Bill number 25-2024, an ordinance approving the appointment of H.A. Berkheimer, Inc. as tax collector of the township business privilege / mercantile tax. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion, Pelagian.
I'll second Scarfaro.
Any discussion?
I have several questions. At the workshop meeting, we had a lengthy discussion on some items, and I'm not going to get into all the details, but I do think this is something we should do. Is there somebody from Berkenheimer here tonight? There's nobody here tonight? Okay. So when they gave the presentation, they said that they're going to rely on our records in the tax department to put things together, all right? One of those methods that we thought that we'd get the business privilege tax is based on business licensing. So far, so good? All right. My understanding is after Lee said at the workshop that there's more than permits to get business licenses. There's other requirements. So the question that I'm having is that we need to have a cross-check system put in place, because as of now, in my opinion, there is not a cross system. Example being that if I'm going to use myself, I apply for a permit, I fill out the paperwork, they send me over to the treasurer's office, and I pay my $50 for the permit. They then either at that time or another time go and look on an Excel spreadsheet that if I have the license. Meanwhile, I go over to Public Works permits, and they hand me my permit. I walk out of the office. They now discovered that, Ken didn't have a license. They mail me the license, and they depend on me mailing it back. If I don't mail it back, guess what? It doesn't exist. And I'm saying that I'm asking the mayor and the department heads to sit down and put a system in place. So if I go into another township and I do it, same procedures, except there's a checklist. And on that checklist, it says, do you have a business license? And if the answer is no, I do not get my permits. Cut and dry. I don't leave the building with a permit. I can't do nothing unless I have the permit. In some townships, because I'm a general contractor, they will also require that any other contractor who's going to be working in the township be supplied as well. It's a catch-all. I'm not advocating that side of the table because it's a real pain to do that, but there's 2 townships I work in, and that's required. The thing that concerns me is that this company, is not, they're going to depend on those people to give them the list to crisscross. The next thing they're going to be doing is that there are situations that could occur where I, as the treasurer, and she's not here tonight, so I'm not picking on her or whatever, but let's be honest, you drive down the street and you see ABC Retail Center, and you go back and you look at your records and you say, oh, they don't have a business license, and they're doing a lot of business. Great. We don't have the personnel to go after that and collect it. So there are people like that in the township that the treasurer may or may not know about. I would like to know if this company, I keep calling Birkenheimer, is going to sit down and find out the list that you currently know that is not paying or that you suspect is not paying. If that is something that's going to be put in place as well. Because if the treasurer's office does not cooperate and say, I think, or whatever, then the end result is then we're wasting our money with this company because this company is depending a lot on us. And the other tax is the EIT tax. Is that, did I say the right tax? EIT tax, that they're going to go and look and say, oh, business ABC has Mr. and Mrs. Smith working there because there's IT tax being collected and they don't have a business license on here. That's one source. But the key thing is, what do we have in our records? And I think that it's not being done in a tedious, proper manner, and we need to look at adopting a different procedure to make sure that permits is the one that I'm sticking on because I know that side of the table. Don't walk out the door unless the form is checked. And I think the person sitting at the desk that's collecting the dollars and cents, okay, does not say, well, I'll check it later. Either you got it or you don't. And this is more towards the mayor side of the table and the treasurer to do that. Because otherwise, I'm not saying dereliction duty, I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm just saying that for all intents and purposes, there's no check and balance, and we need to have this system improved upon. Now, that also goes for things like insurance and some other things that are involved, but the business privilege tax is there. Besides permits, what other method do we have? Because in the report that was sent to me via Jack Myers, in 2000, we collected $1,387,000. In 2023, we collected $1,800,000. So a whopping $500,000 or approximately 30% increase in 20-some years, and I agree 100%, something went up in between. So I want to make sure that we are supplying all the information to this company to do that. If a form is submitted, do we or do we not require with the form to have proof of what your retail gross receipts are, or is it a number that I just swag and fill in? And can we require a form that goes to the federal government or the state that says, this was my retail gross receipts?
That's a legal question, if we
That's
can
why I'm asking.
require.
That's what's required now. You get a copy of the state form for gross volume of business, and that's all it is gross volume of business.
That's right.
And I'm not a proponent of Berkheimer because I'm going to vote against this, but what you do have with them is they can go ahead within their own system, check out earned income tax rolls and business privilege right there. They have, and again, it's just a matter of some guy with a computer knowing how to put things in.
He can check out, yes, he can check out if there's a business privilege based in EIT, but when I submit my form, you do not, and if I'm wrong, please tell me. I think the treasurer said that sometimes she gets a form attached and sometimes she does not get a form attached.
And this is where you can call an audit. You have the right to audit any kind of numbers that come in, and.
No, I understand this.
Okay, maybe I'm not understanding your question then.
I think, I'm not explaining it the proper way. I send in my form, and I'm going to attach to my form gross receipts $1 million. I attach it. In back of that, there should be a state form that says what my gross receipts are, or are you just taking my word? I understood her to say she doesn't always get it.
I don't recall what the treasurer said. I do recall
Okay.
what the Berkheimer representative said, which is that they will require the appropriate form based on the type of taxpayer. So it's different taxpayers file different forms with the
Yes.
Pennsylvania Department of Revenue. They will require that
Ken,
form.
when I was treasurer, this is what we required. They didn't have it. They were sent, hey, you got to send us that. Simple as that. This
I-
is not, but to confirm that, that's where you have to do an audit.
I agree, but she's not here tonight. Does you know, Jack, whether or not these forms are always accompanied with the proof of retail sales?
I can tell you, when I was handling opening mail for the tax office during COVID, a lot of them don't have that.
So, okay,
And I think that's a fail-safe in this system,
I-
you know, with the new
I agree. So the treasurer's office gets it, and we require it, and if you get the form without the attachment, then at that point, and I'm not being sarcastic, but if it's due on the 15th and you submit it without the form, it's an incomplete form, you now would be charged as a late fee, and you didn't file the forms appropriately. And if we haven't been doing that in some of these years, then we've been basically working off an honor system, and I want to make sure that going forward, the treasurer's office is going to do what is required under the ordinance. And if the ordinance doesn't say that specifically, then we need to amend the ordinance that says proof of sales needs to be attached. The other question is, when you talk sales, I understand that that arrangement is based on gross revenue. Some is wholesale and some is retail. This is not a Wally dance where you sit down and say, well, I report, okay, a net number. It's the gross number we're supposed to be collecting on. So there's no what-ifs about it, because I don't care if you're doing all kinds of deductions in between. This tax is designed on the gross. And if we're not matching them up, then everyone should be rejected, and everyone that we've received to date in 2024 needs to go through each one of them, verify that they supplied the proper information, and if not, that form needs to be rejected. Because we're going to pay this company X number of dollars to do something that when the form opens up in the mail, it's either there or it's not, and that's not being done. That's not being done. And I want to know how I get that fixed. I'm okay with this company, but it starts in our own house. It starts in our treasurer's office. This is what's required. It's not a willy-nilly. And the other thing that I'm not privy to, that the treasurer's office would be privy to, Company A makes widgets, and they're doing X. Company B makes widget, and the difference between those two companies is so much money, it's unbelievable. You look at it and you say, I don't know if that's really correct number. Maybe I should look at an audit. That is common sense that you look at and say, here's where we're at. I'm not privy to that, and I understand that I can't be privy to that because that's the Treasurer's Department separation of powers. Is that correct, Jack Gross?
Only the treasurer has access to the individual taxpayer information. I don't, none of you do, the mayor doesn't, all that information is confidential.
How do I know that?
You don't.
I don't.
You don't, Mr. Snyder. It's the treasurer's responsibility. The township had a current auditor who did, or had a past auditor. That auditor is no longer auditing. So part of the reason to consider Berkheimer is to resume the audit function that had been going on, but because the auditor the township was using has retired, there isn't anybody doing it currently.
Yeah, you're right.
He retired,
My problem is not with the company, my problem is not making a conversion. My problem is what's going on in that office, that there's no policy and procedure, and as a commissioner, I can't go and say, hey, let me see the books on how you're doing it, because I can't. I guess the mayor can't. So the end result is, how the heck do we know that the documents are being filed the proper way? How do I know that?
Ken, I don't totally disagree. In fact, I don't disagree with you really at all on this, but I think what you're talking about and discussing is more like internal controls of their office, not necessarily
No,
what we're
because I'll
voting
tell
on
you
here.
why I'm bringing it up now. Because when they sat and talked to us, the number one concern was the information I'm going to work off comes from the treasurer's office. So if I'm going to sign a contract for somebody to audit, then they need to have the paperwork being correct in the beginning. And if we don't have the procedure, that means they can't do their job.
I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, no matter who's doing it, whether it's just our tax office or them, what you're saying is correct, that some of this stuff does need to potentially get
So
cleaned
I'm
up.
asking, how do we get our office to work with them the proper way to make sure everything's being done?
Yeah.
Before we sign a contract.
Okay, what happens is you submit the form.
Yes.
That is something that you're saying that this is the true and correct. Then that's when you see, hey, there's a problem because you had A and B there and there's a big difference. That's when you go ahead and maybe have an audit done on B because they're not reporting half as much as A. But
saying
that
it- you're
has
saying
nothing
it
to,
different than what I
that has
said.
nothing to do with anything until you decide what's the criteria that you're going to use for going ahead and doing an audit. Because it's, I'll tell you right now, you can't possibly do an audit on everybody.
This
No,
is a-
but, and again, with your rationale, at least the way I'm saying it, if you don't do that, you're saying, well, you know, we got A, B, C, and D. E, he's okay. You don't know. That's why you have to do it at random. You look at historical figures, and that's how you get
You're
these numbers.
You're missing my point, Commissioner.
I'm not
You-
missing
you
your
are.
point.
With
This
all
is
due
what I
respect, you
did.
are.
This is what I did was I was a controller for the county. This is what you do. You don't have the opportunity to go ahead and audit everybody.
I'm not
And-
looking for an audit.
But
I'm
that's
not
the
looking
only
for an
way
au-
you can confirm.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Mr. Gross. And Jack, when I submit my form, is it required to have an attachment to it saying what my gross receipts are? Does the ordinance say that? I don't care about the audit part. Does the ordinance say it has to be or not have to be? That's a fair question.
Yes.
It does. Great, that's all I care about. I want to make sure that those guys are double checking, because I understand they don't.
And I can't answer that. I don't recall Ms. Corrin saying that or not. I think it would be better to wait and ask her at a future meeting. That is, if I may, not, I mean, I'm not telling you how to vote on Berkheimer at all, but that is not really relevant to whether you do this, because going forward, if you approve this, Berkheimer is going, that's what they're going to do. They are going to collect these taxes, the forms are going to be submitted to them, and they are going to undertake that process. So I understand your other concerns about process, and I know there have been discussions about them, and I think those are good. I think working in the township on process regarding business license is important. But on that question of the returns related to Berkheimer,
Berkheimer's taking over what year?
What?
What year is Berkheimer taking over? Next year, great. Then this year, would someone please figure out what I'm asking to be done, because we're talking, if Berkheimer walks in here and says,
All I was saying is, I don't recall what Ms. Corrin
all right,
Okay.
I can, just two things. I can guarantee you that you're not getting the tax form from the revenue on a lot of the returns. That's number
when I
one.
file my taxes, maybe I should say to hell with you and just gamble, because I know what I wrote in taxes, to be honest with you. And you sit here and I'm asking a fair question, and I just don't understand this process.
I'm just making the observation. The second thing is that they do have lists and do send out letters to these businesses after the fact, as you acknowledged.
Yes.
The problem is, if they don't return them, it goes to G.H. Harris presently to get collected. And they have no teeth to enforce that.
I understand that.
And that is one of the things that Berkheimer brings to the table. The ability to, their first thing that they're going to be doing, once they're all geared up, is sending out the returns for 2024 and sending out a notice to all of the business licensed customers. This is Berkheimer, we're now your collector for business privilege tax. These are the processes, here's your return, this is what we expect of you, and this is what we require of you.
So what I feel so frustrated about is they sit down and everybody's telling me this tonight, oh, you can't talk about this issue because it has no bearing on that company. Well, that's the problem around here. Nobody wants to talk about the issues. I said one of the things is I don't want to raise taxes, but I want to make sure I get the money that is due me. And damn it, if we have that form that's required, then it should be there. Now I'm going to pay this company $140-some thousand a year to get the forms that verify what's going on. Hear me out. to make sure it's filed properly, because the ordinance says that's the case. And all I'm saying is that in this year, hey, tax office, he claims that you're gonna collect $140,000 extra this year when he takes over.
About 44,000.
Okay.
We're talking 2.5% on 1.8 million.
And one thing that the treasurer did say last week, if you get a permit, do they take the check over to the treasurer's office?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not gonna belabor the issue, but maybe they should see if there is a business privilege license on file before they accept the check. But the policy that the treasurer said last week was that she reconciles, if a permit comes in and the party doesn't have a business privilege license, they create an account. That's their policy. They create the account and they send letter to the business. If the business doesn't pay it, like you said, Jack, it goes to collections for GH Harris. So there is a policy, at least primitive. Maybe it should be more real time, like Mr. Snyder's saying. And to Mr. Charles' point, we're not taking, Berkheimer's not doing it for cheaper. They have more tools in their tool bag to reconcile who's paying, who's not, and if they're paying the right amount. And they have enforcement where we do not.
Jeff, you're 100% correct, but our treasurer, sitting here today, has the availability that when I file my business privilege tax, to look for my attached form, and if it's not there, they don't pick up the phone and say, Ken, it's incomplete. I can't believe that I'm sitting
agree
here
with you.
arguing over this, because it would give us more money, for God's
We're
sakes.
not arguing. I agree with you.
So
We agree
why
with
is why is it so much to ask now and see that someone sits down and talks? I can't, he can't, can Jack? I mean, so we're saying our treasurer's office sits over here and can willy-nilly and say arbitrarily, okay, I like you and you didn't fill out the form, so that's okay. Oh, you gave me the form, that's okay. And that's the way it's done. It's not right, because it's consistent. Either you got it or you don't.
I don't think it's like you're saying, though. And again, the only reason I'm not defending the treasurer's office. I'm just going according to what happened when I was in there. And letters were sent out saying, hey, we need this complete, just like you're asking for. It's not a big deal. And if it isn't, if you're not given that number, well, you can't go any further on it. And then you start going with the penalties and the interest.
Sorry,
And
unless
it's
Mr.
there
Gross
all
told
the
me
time.
And Mr. Gross told me different. That treasurer has the availability to reject that form because it doesn't have an attachment.
And what I was saying, Mr. Snyder, is that I'm not in that office. That may be happening today. I don't know what's happening today. I simply suggested that maybe you want to ask the treasurer about this at the next meeting, because I don't think anybody here really knows how the treasurer handles when that form comes in without the attachment. I don't think anybody here knows what she does with it. That's her job. And unfortunately, she's not here tonight, and I think it would be fair to ask her when she's here. And I hear you, and I agree with you, that you want to make sure that this year's revenue is collected.
As per the ordinance.
The best way to move forward on that is to ask her, either at the next meeting or between now and the next meeting. What do you do when a form comes in that's incomplete? And I don't know the answer to that.
There are,
Discussion item for next month for me, so I can get that? Because it blows my mind. It
there
really
are
blows my
penalties for
mind.
fraudulent returns, too. You keep like saying, well, I'll put in that I made $5 and what I do is I clean chimneys. It doesn't work like that. I mean, when you have somebody who's committing fraud, you then take them, it used to be across the street, where is it? Oh, it's up here now. You take them, okay, up this way, yeah, okay. You take them to court, and they pay a hefty fine if that's what you're looking for.
I'm not looking for fraud.
No, I'm not saying you, I'm saying if that's what we're there to deal with, and this is the only way that you can see this being done.
1.4 million, 1.5 million, 1.6 million. I'm 10 years in and we got $80,000 more. In 2000, we got 1,300,000. In 2023, we got 1,800,000 and some. My gosh, it's a fair question. Go look at what the other townships are collecting in this area. It's a fair question. Are you paying on net, you're paying on gross? If I had to pay on my
It's
net.
not as fair as
totally
what
different.
you think, because of our retail sector here is stronger than a lot of places. You're comparing apples and grapes. I mean, you really are. you have to look at what your area is providing.
I'm not 100% wrong, am I right, Jack?
You're not 100% wrong, no, but you're, part of what you're saying is not true.
But what I'm saying is, it's not an easy tax.
I know.
Not, because these are corporate people, and if they can save a buck, they're gonna save a buck. The thing is, I believe very strongly that not only are we gonna capture businesses that have been flying under the radar, because it's not only the EIT that they collect, but they collect local services tax. So self-employers have to file with Berkheimer that, you know, and pay for the local services tax. So you're gonna be grabbing them. Oh, sorry. And the other thing is, I know we have thousands of dollars of delinquent business privilege licenses that have not been paid. Berkheimer has the ability to go after that.
How
One
much
of the
is that?
first.
How much is that? Is that the 100K?
No, it's not gonna
No,
be
I
$100K,
thought I
it's a
saw something
$35 license.
Okay.
It's the business privilege tax, where I know for a fact that we have at least $100,000 delinquent in business privilege tax over the last 3 years.
You know,
So,
before I left the house tonight, I was talking to my wife, and I said, I sit here tonight as a commissioner. As a business person, I shouldn't even be having this conversation. Just let you go willy-dilly and don't worry about it. But I know the ins and outs. I understand the ins and outs. And all I'm trying to do is close some of those loopholes. That's all I'm trying to do. No more, no less. And unless you've been self-employed for 46 years, you don't understand what I'm talking about. There's a difference between gross, there's a difference between net, there's a difference between this, and in this township, which is highly retail, and we're only bringing this dollars and cents in, and a township next to us is bringing 2 and 3 times that amount of money, that's a fair question you should have asked long before I sat here. That's all I'm telling you. And you worry about raising taxes on people, this is a perfect place to go look at, and no one, I'll wait till next month, and I'll talk to her. I don't think she's doing anything wrong, I don't know the answers, and I'll give her a fair crack to answer those questions. But I will tell you this, if I'm gonna sit here and someone says, we can't answer these questions or ask that a policy be instituted, that we are collecting the proper revenue internally, then I think we have a problem. And that's where I stand on it. I just do.
and those are things we can work on.
More, fine, fine. Nothing else. Enough, I guess.
I-
Go.
Just this, I mean, we're in this situation that was similar to what happened in late 2010s, where we had a whole laundry list of delinquent garbage collections that were never collected. People paid if they wanted, if they didn't, they didn't. I have people that had 10, 11 years that they didn't pay garbage. I started a process of placing liens against them, the property owners. That did some good in that at least we could secure that, but we weren't able to collect on that until we subbed that work out to Portnoy. And Portnoy's been bringing in about $160,000 every year, like clockwork, of delinquent taxes, much of which would have never been paid had they not had the enforcement powers of going after delinquent collections. That's where a major part of this problem is what happens at the end of the year when you have, as she had said, 200 business licenses that had not been filed back, and you have tens of thousands of dollars in delinquent business privilege tax, which aren't being paid, and you have a guy knocking at the door and sending nasty letters, but that's all you're doing. You need to find a way to capture that money, and this is the way we do it.
Okay, and like I told you, I know what sort of goes on here. I don't know how it's gotten to where we are here right now. The only reason that I'm going to vote against these is because Berkheimer, to me, doing taxes, doing this kind of stuff, they're just very, very, very bad in dealing with the people that they're supposed to be servicing through checking things out. And again, I'm sure people in the audience here have, might have had a problem with earned income tax collections from them. Very non-responsive most of the time. This is my opinion from what I see. I know I handle more than most people, but I can just imagine how this might be. And again, I don't know necessarily the solution. When I was treasurer, we had somebody that was just in charge of business privilege. If you would put that to me into somebody that was their job, they would probably do 3 times better than Berkheimer if they were into the system like the people who collect business privilege taxes. I mean, I've seen it from one end of the state to the other. And if you're really involved in this and you really want to do a good job, they feel great. And they just, all they want to do is make sure everybody's paying their fair share.
And you know more than anyone the problems that we've had in trying to find a motivated employee
And
that
that's what
and
I'm saying. Yeah.
knowledgeable of the law being able to do that. On a union clerk salary, they don't have that skill set. I look at it, I understand, and the issues with the customer service end. I don't live in that world. I live in the, how much did you bring in to save the taxpayers? And that's all I care about. That being said, I've had a couple of calls on earned income tax, and I have a communication person over at Berkheimer that I've dealt with in the past. And if we have those things, then I can imagine when we roll this out, there's going to be landlords, small-time landlords, people having questions about that. And I'm more than willing to facilitate communications between our representative and the taxpayer to try and, answer those questions or, whatever, define their positions. But this is something where we're just keep kicking the can down the street. And I don't think we have the skill set to do that in there, despite, the best, whatever efforts they're taking to try and capture these business licenses and making sure everybody files. At the end of the year, it all comes down to who didn't pay. And that's where you're in your pickle right now. And having an open and honest expectation of how you how you file your return properly. And that's the biggest thing.
And I agree with everything you said, and I really
I know.
do. It's just these people, to me, don't provide what the entire county's paying on earned income tax, plus now we're giving them something else that I never dealt with them on this level with this. So I can't say they're good, bad, or in between. They didn't seem to have a large team of people doing audits or whatnot. So I can't really look at that. Again, just from my experience with them, in good conscience, I just can't vote for them.
I understand.
And
I
again-
did talk to Bethlehem Township and I talked to Hanover and they were happy, they have some, pocket retail. They have a couple things, especially on Airport Road there, that generate quite a bit of revenue, Sam's Club and what have you. I mean, they're satisfied with the collections that they're receiving for business privilege tax. It's what helps the taxpayer the most, and I think in this case, you have a relatively small investment that could be recaptured just by the first year going after and securing the payment of delinquent taxpayers.
Any further discussion?
I do. I don't want to belabor the point, I just have a couple of points to make. Number one, I've dealt with Berkheimer from my professional level. I've never had any problems with them. I understand you may have, and I respect your position. My position is somewhat different in my experience. The other thing is, in comment from both Jack and also President Sloniker, we got to look at 2024 in the future, and those of us in business, and I'm sure those in government also know, the pool that we're able to draw from for people coming up through the ranks is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, particularly dedicated people. And while there was comments mentioned about motivated employees and things like that, I don't want to disparage any form of employer or employee, but I can see where someone working for somebody like Berkheimer, who might have multiple municipalities or multiple tasks at hand, rather than someone just being focused on one task, I could see where they would be a beneficial asset to the township. So that's why I'm supporting this. I can't see the township finding someone at what I would consider a reasonable rate to produce the type of income that I think Berkheimer's going to produce for us. I could be wrong. Perhaps this is a leap of faith, but I really see the futures being that outsourcing this is the way to go. That's my opinion.
Just one other thing too. I mean, we had spoken about doing the audits and things like that. And there was initially, when Tom was here and maybe a treasurer or two after, there was a lot of low-hanging fruit that the auditor could go out and grab, and we were very successful in doing that. We had separate legal counsel representing us in the business privilege tax audits, went to the tax appeals board hearings and so forth. At the end of the day, though, we were spending a lot more in legal fees than what we ended up recouping, because there were a couple of major audits that did not go our way. So Berkheimer has an attorney on staff that's able to do that, and it's nice to be able to put that on the delinquent taxpayer rather than the township.
Yeah, for now.
Just two quick things.
Name and address again.
Sure. Bruce Charles, 76 Madison Lane. Two quick things. What Mr. Snyder said is,
They like you too.
as Mr. Schneider said, you need a policy and procedure, first of all. If you don't have that defined, you don't have anything to follow. You're wasting taxpayer money. Secondly, my experience with Berkheimer in my lifetime is they are paper-pushing clerks with poor customer service. My experience.
Lorianne Fanel, 3107 North 3rd Street. I think you guys should give this another month to think about this. Just because of all the questions surrounding it, I think you really should just give it one more month to talk this out. I just feel that way. I don't know. Because I was here when that gentleman was talking, and there just definitely was some questions that Ken was raising that I kind of agreed with. But I think you should give it another month just to talk about it. Maybe at your next workshop. I don't know. Thank you.
Hi, Andrea Hoagland, 51 Kemet Avenue. I agree with Lorianne here to give it more time. I have a problem with how difficult would it be to get back out from Berkheimer if once we got in there and we didn't really feel it was a fit for us. How difficult would it go to come back? I mean, would we have already broken up Treasury and gotten rid of employees, or do we get a year or something keeping our Treasury in place? And you're saying 2025 for this Berkheimer thing? What year?
The collection would start with the returns for 2024, which are filed in 2025.
Okay.
So a business is reporting, just like we report our income tax
Okay.
on the calendar year. They would be doing that in 2025 for what
Do
the,
you think us as a township will be prepared to even turn all the paperwork over?
Absolutely.
Ken keeps saying we're missing half of the paperwork already, that people just don't, I'm sorry, Mr. Snyder, that don't even hand their their paperwork in.
But
So
we-
how,
yeah.
wait.
Go ahead.
So you're saying they're gonna bring us more money, but they can't bring us more money if we can't even get our paperwork in order first.
But we have those businesses identified, those people who come in for permits.
Okay.
Immediately, a letter goes out to them, here's your application,
But you're
fill out
saying
your license.
legal fees wise, that's why we don't go out after them. And we're gonna pay this company, 140,
No,
how much do we pay them?
about, based on, if you look at $1.8 million, which is about what we got last year in taxes.
No, all I wanna know is how much we're gonna pay a year.
$44,000 a year.
How much we're gonna pay a year?
About 44,000.
How much are we gonna make extra off of them a year?
I believe if they just even collected the amount that we have that's delinquent, that
No,
tax.
no, how much are they guaranteeing us? I don't
They're not
want-
guaranteeing
because we
anything.
can say we can get all that money ourselves, and then we don't have to even pay 44,000 now.
But we-
So it's easy to say, this is what are they guaranteeing us on a contract in a paper? Are you guaranteeing 75% increase, 100% increase from what we can collect on our own? Why are we paying money out of our pockets and no positive, like, we're definitely gonna get you $100,000 back on your money? That's what I need. Our town,
I can't give you that.
You
That's-
can't- well, okay.
That's impossible to
So-
say.
so what contract are we signing ourselves up for?
What I am telling you is that in every contract that these boards have signed
Okay.
for delinquent garbage, for local services tax, for earned income tax,
Okay.
those collection companies like Berkheimer and like
Yep.
Portnoy have generated millions of dollars over the course of this time in extra revenue.
Okay, I understand what you're saying,
This
but
is
if
the same
if
situation.
Berkheimer shows up and they get a 0% more than what we have, and actually, they could actually lose us 20% of what we generate. Now,
they're
wait a
not.
minute, how are we covered if they do that to us?
Andrea.
I'm asking this
No,
gentleman a
yeah,
question,
I understand
please.
that, but what I'm trying to tell you is, suppose 3 weeks from now, something catastrophic happens just in this area.
Yep,
A meteor hits.
Yep.
Everybody's out of work.
uh-huh.
Where do they come up with they're going to guarantee you to get money that just isn't there? That's
That's
the
a
whole.
different scenario. We're on
Well, I'm
survival,
just
we're
saying,
on
but this is the
survival
same.
mode at this. This is a
We
business
had
contract.
COVID, that was something that not everybody
No,
was impacted, but
sir,
most
sir,
people
this is a
were.
business contract. You can talk things in here that can protect us as a town.
can't- no,
Not just
you
protect your
can't do that
friends,
on-
not your buddies. I
Okay.
don't even know if this man represents Berkheimer, he represents the township, he represents who?
He's the deputy mayor.
I have no relationship with.
All right.
He's
Andrea,
talking like he,
Andrea,
wait a minute, he's talking
your-
like
your
he has
time is
all
up.
their interests and he
Andrea,
knows
your
their
time
business.
is up, okay?
Didn't he say he's worked with them and he can help me work?
I've
in
worked-
office?
That's Jack Myers, right?
Yes, it is.
Deputy mayor.
Yes.
Guys,
Mr.
just a
Liner,
question.
Mr.
Bill Liner
Liner,
from
you gotta
Copley.
say your name
Bill
and
Liner from
address.
41
Mr.
North,
Liner.
41 North 8th
And
Street,
your
Copley,
name.
Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley Press.
And again,
Bill
is-
Liner Jr. Is this, I don't know, this is my first meeting, I'm filling in for the writer. Do you guys operate like everybody in the room is a commissioner? Now, people can
And if
come up
that's
and
your
just
opinion-
every talk and
if
talk.
that's your
Because
opinion,
you're
William,
talking about a
you're-
vote
you're
on
fine-
Berkheimer.
you're fine to
And
write
Mr.
on that.
Snyder makes good points. My suggestion, because I'm a Whitehall commissioner tonight, table it till next month if you can, unless it's urgent to have it done. I'm familiar with Berkheimer. I love you, Tom, but they do an excellent job.
And,
They're very good.
your results, that's
Because
what you
I have
have.
to leave, I can't, I'm like,
Okay.
ready to fall over if, it's gonna go to 11 o'clock tonight. But it's good to
We-
see.
we-
you.
10:30, we usually go to
midnight.
10:30.
Delaying this vote changes
Nothing. Yeah.
on
Right.
what the contract is. We are talking about things that are internal before it gets to Berkheimer, and those things will need to be addressed.
Right.
What Berkheimer's part in this is, will not change between now and next month, or a couple months from now.
Correct. Except with the relying on our data. And
Right.
and that's an internal problem. I'm fine.
And that's our responsibility to provide that.
Kenneth is looking at the mechanics, I'm looking at a different aspect of this
Sure.
completely. And you know, mechanics are what they are, and that's what, we'll see whether they change anything.
Yep.
Any more comments from the board here? Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
All right, I believe it was introduced by Commissioner Pelagian.
Commissioner Pelagian votes yes.
Commissioner Scarpello.
Yes.
Commissioner Attia is a yes. Commissioner Warren.
Aye.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
And President Sloniker.
Nay.
Okay, bill passes 5-1.
Public hearing and voting on resolutions. Resolution 3328, a resolution of the Township of Whitehall, Lehigh County, requesting a grant from the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Financing Authority's Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program for the Ironton Rail Trail Paving and Gates Project. Do I have a motion?
Make that motion, Pelagian.
I'll second it, Warren.
Discussion from the board?
Quick question, Jack, do you know if this is in joint with Copley, or is this just for the Whitehall?
Yeah,
Okay, and they're doing a similar resolution?
Yeah, Frank prepared the cost estimate that Chad used based on, you know, what Copley has to pay for, what our expected costs are. We're looking at maybe a match of $5,800 to get 160.
I'm all for it. Thank you.
Any others? Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Pelagian. Yes. Commissioner Warren.
Aye.
Commissioner Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Scarpello.
Yes.
Commissioner Attia is a yes. President Sloniker.
Aye.
Resolution passes 6-0.
Resolution 3329, a resolution conditionally approving the major subdivision/land development plan of Whitehall Townhomes located at 3229 North Front Street, index number 2032-23A. Do I have a motion? I have a motion.
I'll make that motion, Pelagian.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Number one, just so that everybody, and I'm not sure that everybody knows, the sidewalk deferral along Center Street was not advertised, so that's not part of tonight's approval or discussion. That they did request that, and it's part of the packet, but we're not discussing that tonight. Number two, condition number 6, Jack Gross, Attorney Gross, this recreation fees in the amount of $2,000, that should be $2,000 per lot, correct? Not just a flat $2,000?
Yes.
Okay, so that, I would think that the resolution should be amended to show that. And then number 8, about the waivers referred to in the Bowler letter, with the exceptions of 1 and 2, they've been withdrawn. Should the letter be revised to withdraw those 2 letters, or those 2 sections, or not? Eight.
Oh, and I apologize, I wanted to read it. What was your question?
Should the letter be revised since the planning commission meeting, because there's no waiving request number 1 and number 2, so should they produce a new letter, or, the letter's intact in the resolution, and I just want to make sure.
Said that in reverse.
But I understand the concern. As the resolution notes that those items have been withdrawn, I don't,
Okay, so we're okay that even though the letter stands,
have it on the earlier one, and I'm sorry, I was trying to catch up reading here, but the earlier one does need to be amended. but I don't see a need to amend that one.
And there was a discussion, and I don't know how far that moved along, Attorney Grover or Frank, about the density issue. Did that ever get resolved for
Yeah,
future
the,
subdivision?
Yeah, it's really convoluted, but early on, you look at it in the aggregate, it does meet the density requirements. However, I think there's a limit on there's a statement in there about limiting any more subdivisions.
Jack, is that sufficient for you, that, because of the density? Because we had looked at that before, about the density issue, and if somebody could go back in, then they could reclaim density, because the area that's subject to development of the new lots is actually over the density, but if you look at it as in the aggregate across the entire site, it's below that.
Correct. I mean, the entire major subdivision meets the density requirement. Your concern is whether they could then try and re-subdivide the property where the house is, and it's my opinion that they may not.
Okay.
I think particularly because of the way they've got the stormwater on that property, a further subdivision there would be a challenge, but it is my opinion that they may not. I know that a representative of and actually I think I see two. Sorry, I didn't see the developer, and I certainly think it would be appropriate if you wanted to ask them here tonight that they agree to that condition. That could
See, the one comment before I would speak to them, or would ask a question of them, is that we've had instances in the past where we've had stormwater management facilities, and then due to changes in rules and regulations, we were able to eliminate those stormwater facilities. And so that could then open that lot up for possible, what's going to happen in the future. So I just want to make sure that.
So I think it would be appropriate to, and I can ask, ask them to identify themselves, to clarify those two items here, and it would be part of the conditions of approval. So it might be best if you can just identify yourself.
Absolutely. Mary Bachert with Bowler Engineering, and I have the applicant here with me, Matt Sorrentino. The current plans, I believe they do have a statement as to the density, that it cannot be further subdivided as to basically the block, the overall subdivision. Additionally, as Attorney Gross had stated, there's a number of large stormwater easements there, not just the actual infrastructure, but over the pipes and everything as well, that would make it somewhat infeasible to even attempt to subdivide that in the future. And your concern about changing regulations, the situation that we have here is it's a large enough site that it is governed by an NPDES permit. So it's not just the township's ordinances that we're complying with, or even LVPC, but it is a statewide permit, and those easements will live in perpetuity.
So perhaps I can just ask, and then it'll be reflected in the minutes. With respect to item number 6, your understanding and everyone's understanding is that it's $2,000 per lot, correct?
Correct, yes.
And second, it is on the plan, and you have agreed, and your client has agreed, that there would not be a further subdivision of, I believe it's lot 11 on the plan.
Correct. Matt, do you agree? We've agreed to that? Yes. And we're happy to work through, if the language on the note is not how we want it to be shown, we can work with Attorney Gross on that language.
I believe that it was, as long as when I was in the planning commission, there was discussion about that, and it was
Yes.
between you and Attorney Gross.
I am
with it, I have
comfortable
no
with it, but
problem.
I think it's appropriate that it's also, here, and it'll also be reflected, so it'll then be reflected in the minutes and as part of the conditions of approval.
I would even, but I don't think we can require it or go so far, but I would say that when the new deed is prepared for that, for lot 11, that be included in it as a restriction, that it cannot be further subdivided. But that's just my opinion, based on my experience.
I would agree with that, because then it's,
And it's
It's on the deed.
and it carries forward. Everybody looks at the subdivision plan.
Is no objection to a deed restriction.
Regarding the $2,000 fee, the existing Wheeler house is exempt from that, correct? That's what we've always done. So it's only on the new created.
New structures.
There's one lot now, there will be 11 posts, so there's
Counts as 10.
Next question is regarding the BMPs that are being done on the Wheeler property. In a lot of places where I've done business, it's required to sign a maintenance agreement with the parties and gets recorded on that lot specifically. Do we have the availability to require that a maintenance agreement is going to be on that particular lot, as well as any other lots that we do subdivisions on? Because then the party, whoever buys it, or if the Wheelers continue to own it, I don't know what the circumstances are, but it's on record and it's signed and they know that there's a responsibility. If it's on a plan, it gets lost and no one ever looks at it.
Well, we look at it, and it's on the plan. It clearly spells out the maintenance responsibility for Lot 11, any owner of Lot 11. And then we have the MS4 inspections, and then plus that's all recorded. So it's not like it gets lost. If that pond falls into disrepair, the township has the ability for an enforcement action.
So the practice I've been dealing with lately is the fact is that even though it's on the plans, the townships are making us do maintenance agreements signed by the parties prior to the COs being issued on the properties. That's what's being required. In where, Upper Saucon, they do that.
Is there an O&M agreement as part of the NPDS?
The O&M agreement for the NPDS is bound to the PCSM plans. So the PCSM plans that have the ownership and maintenance responsibility notes on them will be recorded against all parcels.
NPDS O&M agreement.
So because of the way you did your storm sewer and put it all in the one lot, all I'm telling you is that you're gonna sell that to somebody if that's the case. If the memorandum is separate specifically to it, they will definitely see it in the chain of title as compared to on a plan. There's a difference. There's a big difference.
All I can offer is that we've complied with what the township and the solicitor have
Yeah,
requested.
I understand, but I'm asking that question, if, A, do we have the availability to require these? We currently have 3 homes in Whitehall Township that either is or are in the process of being built, where COs weren't issued because A, homeowner didn't understand, didn't follow through, Conservation District come along, shut down the jobs, et cetera, whatever the arrangements are. And I'm just saying that on this particular lot, there's a big responsibility, we talked about it at last month's meeting, that says, hey, when you buy this, this is what you're buying into. And I just think a separate memorandum should in fact be posted, between the
there's already
town,
agreement
between
in
the
the-
township and the developer, and it gets recorded on that lot totally separately, not buried in a plan.
There's a separate O&M agreement that will be recorded in the courthouse. Any title report will sweep that. It's gotta be noticed. I mean,
I guess I'm not having a good night tonight. It doesn't happen. I'm gonna tell you, it doesn't happen.
But Mr. Snyder, if there is going to be a separate agreement recorded, if we require an agreement, it would only be the same thing. You'd just have another agreement. So if I understand and I agree with you that often the people of,
Township, I can do the list, Matt knows. Exactly, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Upper Macungie.
Yeah, it's, every time I bring my experience to the table, everybody says no, but I'm gonna tell you, the rest of these townships are doing this for a lot of reasons, because happy owner comes along and says, oh, I didn't realize I had to keep my drains intact. Oh, I didn't realize that, and I didn't realize that, and the water's going down the street, and they didn't do what they had to do, and they said, oh, now that's the case. If we don't have it in our ordinance, we need to put it there. Yes, Lee, I'm sorry.
Yes, Lee.
I just want to remind you, Ken, though, that I don't believe any of those communities, if they do, I'll be corrected, have the maintenance program that we have for all of the stormwater facilities in the township. So at the very minimum, you'll go 3 years before something happens. That's the most that you'll go, because every one of these facilities is inspected every 3 years, which you can't say about all those other communities.
I know, I get it.
Yeah, no, you're
I mean,
correct.
Yeah,
Wait.
documents are recorded, I get where you're coming from, but you're a realtor, you know the stack that you get. When I bought my house, I didn't go through all of
I
it.
guarantee you that the seller's disclosure statement is not gonna have on the responsibilities of what that has. It will not be there, and Matt, you and I are on the same page.
That's the part of our job here, I mean, and whenever we go out, we do those stormwater inspections, that's part of what people get informed about. We have developments all over the township, and I know Jeff has said he's not in favor of this arrangement, but we have and I understand where he's coming from, but we have, part of Timber Ridge is a quarry. That's the drainage system for a lot more homes than his house, and he has to maintain it. There's many privately owned basins all throughout the township, so we're used to doing this.
Drainage 15 years ago and the last 3 years is just totally done different. Again, I see it as an improvement. I just see it as an improvement, especially when one homeowner is picking up 11 lots. And if you don't want to add it in, fine.
I don't think that it's not to be added in. I think there's already a document that's recorded. I don't understand the difference, like who you think's going to enforce it more.
When you,
Okay, this is not my expertise, but I'm just asking a question here. Even if we're doing what you're asking, could the worst-case scenario, as you're expecting, still happen?
no, so there's 11 lots. 10 of them are going to be newly
Right,
occupied.
okay, yep.
What's odd about this one is someone already lives in the one lot. Is that correct? They're living there now. So when you go to apply for your building permit, at the end, you're going to ask for a CO. The township will say, we want on record a memorandum for the BMP signed by you and notarized, and by the township, that you understand exactly what you're getting into, or you do not get a CO. And they sign it, and it gets recorded along with their deed. And it's in the chain of record that that homeowner was on record. So now you go sell your home, okay? And now you have to disclose the fact that you signed and entered in this agreement, and you understand the responsibilities of the BMP. It's done in Upper Macungie, it's done in Lower Saw, it's done in a lot of different places. And in this case, because it's already occupied, I don't really know how that would work, except when they would have a new owner come in and do that. But it should be part of it so that everybody understands on record exactly what's going on. So in Tivoli Gardens, it wasn't that way in the beginning, but when they made a new policy, all my homeowners did it. And guess what? No signed notary, no legal descriptions, and not only that, it required that every BMP would have a separate legal description showing where it is. So some guy, like they did to me up in Washington DC, put an in-ground pool over a BMP, and it took me 2.5 years to clear up with the NPDS, my problem. And that's why I'm trying to explain this. I live this stuff and I know what can happen when it goes wrong, and that's all I'm saying.
It's not a bad idea, Ken. Just in the township where I work, we have a development, and everything's, people can't do anything. Nothing was, a lot of things weren't disclosed. And homeowners now are realizing they can't do anything on their property. Soil conservation, you have Lehigh County Conservation
I know.
involved, and an NPDS that's not closed out. So, yeah.
I have a situation, guy can't put his deck up because they use all
So do I, I
the
know,
stuff up.
yeah.
And they're saying, how could that be? I just built this brand-new house. Hey, you didn't check it out, my friend. Oh, well, it's recorded. Oh, yeah, okay, fine. That's the real world.
Well, the only difference here, though, is the triennial inspections from the township. And the other thing is that the owner of Lot 11 is signing the plan as the record owner. So they're going to know.
There'll be a recorded O&M
Right.
agreement.
They're going to know, they're going to know everything.
Which will
that's on
show
that
up in
plan.
their chain of title. I mean, Ken, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm not arguing with you, but I think here, and there was a fair amount of discussion at planning about this exact issue, and making sure there was gonna be an O&M agreement that was recorded so this was covered. Please understand that it wasn't as if this was glossed over or not considered at planning. My opinion, it was. I understand, and I'd be happy to talk to you about whether we want to add an additional requirement. I don't know in this situation, since you already, the lot where the stormwater management system is going there's already a home constructed on it, it's already occupied. Those owners are going to be signing the plan, they're going to be signing the agreement. There's no doubt that they know everything about what obligations are being put on that lot. I mean,
Yeah, and
that's different in other situations where I agree with you. Where I agree, you do a development, and you got a 30-lot development, one of the 30 lots gets the stormwater management, and people, the new owner of that doesn't know what they bought. I agree, that happens.
Yes.
That's not this one. Ken. It's not, because the house is there, the owners are there, they're signing the plan, they're signing the
Who's
owner.
actually developing it, may I ask, Matt?
I'm sorry?
Who's developing it?
We are.
You?
Yeah.
Are you the owner of the house?
Not yet.
Not yet. You will be the owner of the house?
Yes.
I'm assuming they're vacating then, is that correct?
Yeah, eventually. They're not sure when, so. If there's something, I don't want to be a part of making your policies.
No, Matt,
here.
it's not that. We all know about what happened up in Shity's Estates. There was a residence in Whitehall Township that got caught because over the 43,000 square foot arrangement, it became a mess. The poor guy didn't move into his house for almost 6 to 7 months. Don't know where the problem was, but that's the point is, somebody was doing something on their side, didn't have the
Let
experience.
me give you a quick lesson on that. Lee was concerned about that permit, that when it came in.
Yes.
She handed it to us. I had I think it's at least 17-point review letter that would have taken care of every one of those problems. But their engineer did not take that seriously, and they went ahead.
Agreed.
Okay?
I understand.
And the contractor didn't stake out the limit line, and they directed water onto a neighbor's property.
An inexperienced
and that was-
person
that was
not
a
knowing what they're
problem.
doing.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
The person who prepared the plan should have known better,
Yeah.
period. Okay? That was caught.
I just don't want to see that happen down the road, Matt. That's all.
Nobody does, okay? Nobody does.
Okay.
And since I was mentioned, I have a hard time with the stormwater management on a single property. You know, we're gonna sell 10 homes to somebody, all this extra drainage is being created and put onto lot number, I guess it's lot number 11.
11, yep.
And if there's sinkholes that have opened up in the yard, there's sinkholes opened up that out in the street. And yeah, someone can buy that house, but if sinkhole opens up on there, I'm sure it's gonna be a cost burden where it could bankrupt them. And to allow 10 other people to walk away without any liability to fix that sinkhole, I kinda don't, I don't like. A technical question, on R5A separation side yard. I think the ordinance, the requirements say that a yard must be 12 and a half feet from the building, side yard. We have two separate buildings here. That's 24 feet. Or 25 feet, sorry. And if I'm looking at the map, either I'm reading the number wrong, is that 15-foot separation, or is that just for is there 25 feet between?
There's an easement that's running along the pipe. There's a 15-foot wide
Okay, is
easement.
that 25 feet between the two buildings?
Correct, there's two 12-and-a-half-foot side yards.
Okay. All right, and just the easement does not encroach on parcel number 11? Because, I mean, if parcel number 11 only has 40 feet in the back.
Yeah, there's multiple easements, so
Yeah.
which one are you?
Yeah, there was an access easement for anybody can take something to the back of their
doesn't
house,
affect
a
11.
shed or something.
No, that doesn't impact 11, it's a
I
cross-access
think it's
easement.
unfortunate, it looks like there's only 40.9 feet from the house to the property line in the back. It's a beautiful property that it could sell if that was listed on the market today, it could sell as a single property, but anyway. You can answer my question. Well, last I do have a question. There weren't any zoning variances granted to meet this spec here.
No, we didn't go to zoning, it's by right.
All right. I mean, I can see, infill development's one thing, but we can maximize any piece of green ground and develop it to its full extent. And when we talk about next week, I'll be talking about urban development. This is urban development. It's no different than going down 7th Street where you have homes attached to each other. If you're adding more people to the area, you gotta think about public safety.
Further discussion? Mr. Secretary,
We
please.
have public participation for this?
Come on up, please.
Lorianne Fanel, 3107 North 3rd Street. I'm totally against this development in Hawkindaqua. Not only do I live in close proximity, semi, I guess, this property is historic, and former Commissioner Dutt worked very hard to make Hawkindaqua from 4th Street, I think it is the historic district. And I think we're going to be destroying a little bit of our history in this area. I think, Jeff, you might agree with me on that. I mean, we're building townhomes, 10 of them, and this is, like I said, historic property. It's a beautiful property, and now we're going to be destroying it by building 10 townhomes. And I know there's people in that general that feel the same way as I do, but they're not comfortable with public speaking. I wish it could be done different. I know my opinion may not matter in this, but I just want to know it's just like destroying the history of Hakkondakwa that we requested to be a historic district. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, can you please poll the board?
Commissioner Pelagian?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Attia is a yes. Commissioner Scarfaro?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
No, but, sorry. Good luck to you on your project.
President Sloniker?
Aye.
Resolution passes 5-1.
What is the changes that are to the resolution? Is it just for the refuse or is there something else?
There was nothing else, and
It's just adding the 2,000
per lot,
to the refuse?
yeah.
Please build nice homes.
Thank you very much.
Resolution 3330, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor and Whitehall Township to enter into a settlement agreement regarding the tax assessment appeal tenant managers Whitehall LLC and the property known as 2401 MacArthur Road. Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Yes.
Motion to approve it.
Second?
Any comments or questions?
I'm not going to be animated as like I was last week, but I think we should send a letter to the state just to give them an example of how these appeals have impacted us. And I called the state already. They're kind of like they don't understand how municipalities are being adversely affected by this. And when the school district has to raise taxes, they got to infill more revenue than we're losing. So I don't know. I don't have the means. I don't know all the facts to draft a letter. Otherwise, I would myself. But and share it with the county, each of the county commissioners. There's got to be a better way to combat these things. And I will say this from what I said last week, just so it's on record, is that this property sold for more than it was assessed. They put a lot of money into the property, and because the common level ratio in Lehigh County is lower, they're able to appeal their assessment for even less than what they paid for it. So that's.
If I could, Mr. President, I reached out to many county commissioners and the county executive, and working with Doc Steckel, he worked the school districts, I worked the municipalities. Outlying municipalities that didn't have a large retail or office sector had no interest whatsoever in petitioning the county or the state government to move forward and ask for a reassessment.
See,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
This is a very unfair process, the way the program's set up. And it doesn't seem to me that anyone at the county or the state level has any interest in addressing this situation. It's not solely Whitehall, but we're a unique animal in the valley. There's a couple others that are similar in scope, but they don't have the large retail sector that we do. And I did my very best. Larissa worked very hard compiling a list of, township managers, mayors, you name it. And I started making phone calls, and I was very disappointed. I mean, I got a lot of pushback on, are you crazy? Why would we self-impose a tax on our taxpayers when, if you look at the big picture, it's really, yes, it's a self-imposed tax, but it's not, it spreads the pain out. But no one has any interest in it. I worked very hard on it.
Reassessment aside, I'm sorry, are you done, Joe?
No, yeah, I'm good.
Reassessment aside, they're using a single number to fit all of Lehigh County. And I think they need to, it's up to the legislators to put some more common sense legislation in place where if a property sells for $1.8 million and now they want to assess it for something significant less, how can you justify that? They bought it for more than they think it's valued. And there were vacancies before and now there's no vacancies. It's maximized out. So they're within their means to appeal their assessment, but the numbers don't make sense to me, so.
Well, hopefully there's not many more to come. Let's cross our fingers.
Sorry, Jack. Just belabor the issue.
No,
It's hurting our resident taxpayers every time this happens.
Further comments?
Allows them to do it and they all take advantage of it, as we well know.
And if people were impacted here the same way, we might do the same thing that they're doing. I mean, you look for what you have to have. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, reassessment isn't the cure-all, because every single residential property owner's gonna see an increase in their assessed value by a lot.
Mr. Secretary, please pull the board.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Commissioner Scarfaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Pelagian,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Commissioner Tiazzi, yes, President Sloniker.
Aye.
Okay, resolution passes 6-0.
Motion to approve the release of escrow for completed and withdrawn projects per Deputy Mayor Myers memo dated June 27, 2024. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Secretary, please pull the board.
Commissioner Tiazzi, yes. Commissioner Scarfaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Aye.
Commissioner Pelagian,
I'm going to abstain because I purchased the lot from the subdivision, so it's not appropriate.
Hi, neighbor.
Yes.
Sloniker.
Aye.
Okay, that's 4 yes, 1 abstention. No, I'm sorry, 5 yeses, 1 abstention, sorry. Having trouble counting here.
Motion to appoint Pedro Jose as the alternate to the Whitehall Township Zoning Hearing Board, term expiring December 31st, 2029. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion, Scarfaro.
Do I have a second?
Second, Warren.
Any questions from the board, comments?
Does this now fill everything, the full-time as well as the alternate? We're 100% up to snuff, is that correct?
No.
No.
Pardon me?
This gives you an alternate, correct? This is the only alternate.
We have an alternate plus,
We're short one alternate.
Two alternates,
Yeah, we're short one.
but we're short one.
so in the last 2 or 3 zoning meetings when we only had 4 instead of the 5, we didn't have any alternates. Now we do have an alternate to fill in for that situation. Great. Okay.
Any other comments? Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Scarfaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiazzi, yes, Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Commissioner Pelagian,
Yes.
President Sloniker.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Motion to appoint John Cool to the Ironton Rail Trail Oversight Committee to represent Whitehall Township as an alternate. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make that motion, Pelagian.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it to you.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none. Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Pelagian, Commissioner Tiazzi, yes, Commissioner Scarfaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren, Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
and President Sloniker.
Aye.
6-0 passes.
Motion to approve the appointment of Deb Rosen to serve on the Whitehall Township Shade Tree Committee, term expiring December 31st, 2027. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make that motion, Pelagian, and just to correct the record, it's Deb Rosine, not Deb Rosen. And she's sitting in the audience, too.
Okay, I have to read what's there. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Warren.
You want to make a correction?
No, I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Okay.
Then you misswore.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Pelagian,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Aye.
Commissioner Scarfaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder,
Yes.
Commissioner Tiazzi, yes, President Sloniker.
Aye. Motion to approve the appointment of Karen Pashevko to serve on the Whitehall Township Shade Tree Committee, term expiring December 31st, 2026. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Warren.
I'll second, Scarfaro.
Comments or questions? Mr. Secretary, could you please poll the board?
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarfaro?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelagian?
Yes.
Commissioner Atia's a yes. Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
And President Sloniker.
Aye. Motion to approve the appointment of Janet Minnick to serve on the Whitehall Township Environmentally Advisor Council, term expiring December 31st, 2027. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion, Warren.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, Scarfaro.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Scarfaro?
Yes.
Commissioner Atia's a yes. Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelagian?
Yes.
President Sloniker.
Aye.
6-0 passes.
Motion to approve the appointment of Janet Minnick to serve on the Whitehall Township Shade Tree Committee, term expiring December 31st, 2025. Do I have a motion?
I'll move. Atia?
Do I have a second?
I'll second, Scarfaro.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Atia's a yes. Commissioner Scarfaro?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Commissioner Pelagian?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
President Sloniker.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Discussion items, Keystone Communities Grant.
This doesn't have to be on, we talked about it in workshop and stuff, yeah. We're all good.
Okay. Number 2, status of old police station.
We discussed what was going on at the workshop session, so there's no point in getting into it unless somebody has an
I have
update.
a couple answers. Yes, we have the rebid scheduled for the 22nd to 29th and August
Schedule.
8th.
Yeah, I think I sent the board all the schedule, the sign, the,
Jack made a wonderful sign, very informative, very professional.
Balloons, everything, fireworks. We want
Well, not that far, but it looks very marketable.
Homemade cookies and donuts, I
Yeah,
hope.
yeah, we're going to put smelly candles in there, too.
That's good.
Okay.
The smellier, the better.
So the goal is to sell it rather than figure out if a kid used it for anything. Is that
Well, yeah. We have a minimum bid set,
Yes.
and that's,
correct? But the goal is to sell it, not the other thing we talked
That's the
about.
appraised value that we were given.
That's fine, okay. I have no discussions on that. And I have nothing on
Just-
Berkheimer either.
can we, I was, somebody had contacted somebody that I know about interest in the building. How can I direct them to get all the information? All I told them that was discussed at the last week's meeting.
well, yeah, as,
Is it gonna be on the website? Is
it'll
there
be
gonna be a
on,
link?
the bids are on the website in addition to the ad that's going. It'll refer people to Michelle's phone number or our bids online email address if they want to get copies of the bid specifications.
If
And I
there's any-
had like 3 or 4 contacts just within the past couple weeks of people interested in it.
Are we informing potential bidders that it might be, qualify for adaptive reuse in?
We're not making any
We're not making any
representation.
references, okay, they ought to look at that on their own and make.
Too early. It's not, it doesn't qualify,
Yeah, it's
so-
like 2 years away.
Right.
So, and, I kind of agree with Mr. Snyder. I think this is it's not the right location, but we would never be able to build the building even if we got it and buy a lot for what we might get back out of it. So I kind of agree with Mr. Snyder that, our recreation folks, I think they have to have at least 3 bays and we have to keep working in that direction for them.
Yeah, I truly believe that if we tried to retrofit this building, just fire suppression alone, and the updates that be required, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, I mean, you name it, it's gonna become a financial nightmare to get that building up to code to house personnel in, without demolishing the building and starting fresh. And at this point, I don't think it's the perfect location. We can move on to.
I don't want to belabor the issue, I think.
Okay, and the discussion on Berkheimer, that's been done just because we voted on it. Okay. Updating of website?
I have nothing to discuss on that issue tonight.
Anybody else have anything on that?
Deborah Rosine, 4408 North Church Street. Regarding the updating of the website, there's a lot of information that needs updating on our website. I would very much like to update the information regarding the Environmental Advisory Council, and I would like the capability for us to be able to post minutes from our meetings that the public can access. And right now I do not have that capability, and I've asked multiple times over the last few years for that capability. So if we're going to consider updates, I don't know if you're just like looking at content or if you're looking to change the
I
architecture.
think they're doing the whole overall
Okay.
thing to
Well,
it.
yeah, and this wasn't limited to what the website, although that was part of it. It was more of an IT issues.
Last arrangement, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Comments,
I'm not looking for the capabilities to be able to go and admin type stuff, but if I can hand off to somebody who can post content for me, and if there needs to be a
Right now,
review
I don't think
process
that's
or whatever.
possible. It's just something that I think that's what they're looking into doing.
Yeah.
Well, we'd have to look at it, yeah.
But there's some good stuff, like the little video thing that was done with the drone was kind of cool. So I don't know if we should like chuck everything.
I think if there's some general information, like officers, contact, I think we can get that updated through our webmaster. So if the content's outdated, say like it doesn't have the
Yeah.
right officers,
Well,
if
it's
you provide those
even more than that,
corrections.
it like says that we do stuff that we don't do at all. So,
I don't think, who in the township is responsible for our website now, inside, to contact our webmaster? So that would be, you would be the go-between to do that type of thing. Okay.
so I can just give you some
Text edits,
information.
things like that, yeah.
A while ago, I told you, just give me
Okay.
what you want. I can't do the minute part because that's not set up for that.
Yeah.
But the information that's on the page now, if you want different information
Yeah, we
on
have a
there.
really nice pamphlet that we've created, that I think if we just take that information and.
Yeah, we talked about that with Joe, that
Okay.
Okay. West Catasauqua Playground Pavilion Access Ramp / Walkways.
I think Frank was looking into that. The goal is to make progress and come up with a plan with,
Yeah, we're trying to meet with Brandon this week, later this week. Hopefully it cools off. We'll go and take a better look at it together.
because at this point, we don't know what kind of costs are associated. Could it be 5 for less than 10,000? Maybe it's more if it's done a different way, but.
We did talk that we weren't going to use pressure treated, correct? Okay, we weren't going to use a lift, no lift. That we're going to look at the possibility of aluminum type prefabricated, and then our staff would install it. Those are the two things we're doing. So if you already have a drawing that's been engineered with the requirement of ADA, the question is, do you look for a aluminum one that matches those specs and work your way to do that? So we could in fact start the process for an RFP for an aluminum one to match that and start that process going. The only thing that would be different would be that Frank would go down and look at it and say, you know what, I think we could put it in the front versus the side, and that's the case. I don't want to be sitting here in August and saying, okay, now let's consider starting the EFP and working our way through the process. Let's get it on the books and start moving in that direction. Because this was done last year, which is fine. And, my famous little project manager arrangement would be ideal for someone to work on this thing and move it forward. I would like to see it move forward. I know Frank's got his thing going, but there are things that could be done. It'd be 9 months if we started right now today, before that would probably be in there based on the experience I have with my floor. That's all I'm saying. So how do we get that going faster?
Later this week to talk about which way we're gonna go with it, and then I'll put the drawing together and get it out for a bid. I
Okay.
mean, it's, the nice thing about the prefab aluminum, you just give them the parameters, what you need, you order the parts. They're not unusual parts.
No,
They're
no.
very standard. That's why I wanted to go that way rather than PT.
And then the other thing that ties into that is the walkways to the ramp itself. Okay, I'm fine. Okay,
Anything further?
no?
Okay, number 6, temporary sign ordinance revisions.
It's me. I talked to Attorney Gross about this, and I know in legal legislative, you didn't think there was a way to, I originally asked for all of this temporary sign thing to be put on hold for 6 months, and it was explained in the workshop that we cannot do that. Currently, our sign ordinance on temporary signs does not work both for our retail businesses and other businesses in the township, as well as the township itself. It's a big burden to try to enforce all the things that are going on. So what I did is I talked to Jack, and if you look at our current zoning ordinance, everybody who has a temporary sign must file for a permit. And when you do that, that permit is only good for 20 days, and then it comes down, and you only can do it 3 times during a 12-month arrangement. Considering the amount of retail that we depend, that's an awful burdensome arrangement to file for a permit and work your way through the process. So I asked if he would look at this and figure out how we could do this, and one of the things would be that we would put an ordinance together to make changes now and then come back and revise things that would maybe have to be revised. So for example, I think Attorney Gross and I talked about that there would be no permits required for a temporary sign to go up. That would be no permits, because right now, a lot of people aren't getting permits in that arrangement. When you look at the actual ordinance itself and you look under temporary, they call out a temporary sign. And then so is it a sign, or is it one of those flags that wave special sales or whatever the arrangements are? And I think the maximum of a temporary sign could be is 2 square feet. Am I right in saying that, Jack? I think it was 2 square feet. No, 32, 32 square feet.
If it's one-sided,
One-sided, 32 square feet.
64 if it's
Right.
two-sided.
So what I'm asking is that we prepare an ordinance to remove the temporary sign ordinance and then take the next 6 months to come back and look at this thing and clean it up. If you have a directional, you can't use a directional sign. I think that is limited to 2 square feet. There's things in here that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And the problem that I have is if we had enough staff to equally apply the ordinance, I'm okay. But the problem is, because we are so much retail, we don't have enough staff or could not afford enough staff to equally enforce it. So therefore, I think we need to remove it and rewrite it instead of seeing all these things come through one right after another of whatever it is. And that's what I'm proposing that we do on the sign arrangement for the temporary signs. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Can we call it an interim?
No.
Motion.
From what I understand from Attorney Gross is that we need to do an ordinance removing, I think we said removing the best would be the easiest way to do this. And then as a board, we go back and look at the sign ordinance completely and sit down and say, what do we do? And in the next 6 months to 7 months, we look at it and say, let's make these changes and go from there. So I have a storefront window as an example, and let's just say I have 100 square feet, 10 by 10 window. We don't regulate even how much sign coverage we could put in that. Other municipalities do that. So that's why I want to look at the whole thing.
I just have a question. Did we talk to Lee or zoning about this at all, or no?
I did.
To see what their thoughts were?
Because we did not move on it at LNL because of
Yeah.
what we've heard from
Right.
zoning and.
Well, Chris was there, I was there at L&L. It's up to the board what you want to do. I just had a question for Attorney Gross.
And I just
which
couldn't
he
read
wasn't
your
good at
lips.
lip reading. This would still be a zoning amendment, so it would still have to go 2 hearings before this board. It would
Correct.
still have to go to the LVPC, it would still have to go to the planning commission. So even this ordinance is gonna be like a 90-day.
Yes?
To get it
get it
done.
Yeah,
drawn
I-
up.
Yeah.
And
I
adopted.
understand.
Yep. No,
So-
I think that might have been a response to, because, Mr. Warren, you asked if this could be it can't be if you're going to do something, and this is what Mr. Snyder and I spoke about, and he gave me parameters of what he was interested
Yeah.
in, which I can.
Signs are problematic. I mean, you're all right. I mean, we have 1 million of them. There's always going to be 1 million of them. Are they going to all be permitted? No. There's no, not, in my mind, after 38 years of doing this, there's no perfect solution. And you can pull all kind of other communities. I'm sure Ally knows this very well. Everybody deals with it differently. Most people still have regulations for temporary signs. We changed it over the years. It wasn't always what it is today. But like I said at Legal and Legislative, the reality is, years ago, a temporary sign was your 32 square foot, one side, 64 square foot, two sides, the sign that we have down at the hockey pool. They were Jack and Jill signs. There wasn't a whole bunch of them. You had to go to the agency that rented them out, and then you know, as a business, you got your temporary sign. So our regulations were okay because they weren't as, you know, easy to acquire and put up. Today, anybody can get a sign made instantly. It's so much more available, so there is, and that's why I think the businesses are frustrated, because whereas in the past, they had to work beyond us. They had to go and get, the signs weren't as available, but now they're available, and we're the holdup. So, yeah, it is a problem, and we're here to do what you want to do. I don't have the perfect solution right off the top of my head, I really don't.
So when-
Ken's right, we don't have enough, you wouldn't have.
you don't.
You'd have to have 50 people as full-time people in Whitehall to catch every single sign.
So it's kind of ironic, you have a grand opening, okay, and you know how you put the banners out? Everyone's in violation. I mean, they had a grand opening in our community, and everything was invalid. And meanwhile, somewhere else, someone just got fined for having the same thing that was there because, not enough time. So if you can't apply it fairly, then you shouldn't be applying it until we try to fix it. And I recognize that even when we try to fix it, it's not going to be perfect, but what's here right now doesn't work at all. At all.
I'll tell you my ideas here is that you saying that this is going to look like the 70s in Jersey. You're going to see signs, 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 and the way you're doing it, hey, do whatever you want. Nobody's going to take them down. When you see some of, I mean, when they have these going out of business signs that stretch from, say, McDonald's now down to the ramp going on 22, and it's just horrible.
So-
And your way of doing it is, well, let's everybody do it.
So-
I can't imagine there'll be more then.
So what I found ironical is that the exemption is politicians. You can put up as many signs as you want whenever
I
you
didn't
want.
write that, that was here
Okay,
before
so
I
I mean, it's
came.
kind of ironical that we've exempted ourselves, and that's a little joke, okay?
But those signs like you're talking about, Tom, actually, those are litter, and that's
No,
regulated by the
I-
police
I know-
department.
I know we get into that litter thing, but, I mean, people are gonna go run with this. And the thing about exempting ourselves, that's a part of free speech that isn't to go ahead and
was a
get
joke.
commercialized. It's how they ruled in the courts. I'm not bringing this, I'm not me.
We get how much in revenue from our businesses, et cetera, and to sit here today, and I'm not calling anybody out special, but I will tell you very clearly that if we got in our car and you give me the book, I'd probably have 100 citations by the time I got down to the end of MacArthur Road.
No.
And I'm just telling
You
you,
wouldn't.
oh my God.
You
then-
wouldn't.
Then you need to read your ordinance.
I'm just saying, you don't need it, because, well, it's Monday, and I've just been through there on Sunday and Saturday. And there's 3 signs I know that are there that I didn't get, because I didn't have the capability of pulling over, because it was raining at that time, and I wasn't gonna put myself in jeopardy. But what you're saying is sort of true, but now, what you're saying, hey, doesn't work, we'll get rid of everything, well, now you can go ahead and just multiply that by tenfold, and it'll be that much
Well, then when our
worse.
mayor, who I'm hoping is going to soon say something over here, is fielding these calls that says, you're picking on me, there's no answer for that, because we can't go to our zoning officer and say, these are the directions, because the understanding is it's his job to apply what is there, and I understand that. But when you sit here and you see a business getting tagged and the guy next door isn't getting tagged, that's a problem. And if we need to address it, and I know, I don't want to hear, it used to be that I would have to order signs 60 days in advance. Now I can do it online and have it Federal Express to me in 24 hours and do it. And that's what I'm trying to say. If a business is having an event, let them put up their temporary signs. If a business is turning around and we're having a tough time because sales are off, the car dealer doesn't meet the requirements. Every flagpole that's up there says used car dealers, it doesn't make it because that's all temporary signs. Figure it out. It doesn't make it. Doesn't meet the requirement. You want to go down the line and hit me, Jack? Just go down the line and go pull into Wawa. All the little signs out front that says park here, park there. It doesn't make it. Go over to Giant where they sit down and say customer service, come up and park here. It's an invalid sign.
If I could.
Am I right in saying so?
They're not invalid.
I mean,
Like
Gilboy's.
the ones on the bollards and
I
stuff.
shouldn't bring
those are all
names to
temporary
this, but the
signs.
only car dealer in the township, new car dealership in the township, they are advertising on vehicles in the front of the parking lot. They're putting decals on vehicles. They put balloons up. Are balloons a sign? I don't know. If they say sale on them, I guess it is.
Well, we have, I didn't get into balloons, but
Okay.
like the writing on the cars, no, that's been determined that that's just a car.
Right, but is it a car? But it says,
I
0%
understand what you're saying,
financing for
but
72 months.
legally, that was determined that it's a car.
All I'm asking the board, and Mr. Snyder, thank you for being patient, but I wanted to let you finish and let other board members say their piece.
2 for 3 so far. So I
Okay.
think we got a shot.
What I'd like to say is, yes, I do field numerous phone calls. And I've known these business owners, and they're well-established in the township. They're not big box corporate. They're just trying to make a living, and they're very frustrated. And I understand there has to be controls. But if you could consider and reconstitute the ordinance to give them some relief, it would be much appreciated. Because, let's be honest, you drive into the Lowe's parking lot, although it's private property, 3 bags of mulch for $10, I don't think Lowe's cares. It's corporate America. You can send them all the violations in the world. They may react to them. They may take their banner down and move it to another pallet of mulch. But, you have a guy who has a sandwich shop or a small mom and pop car dealer or, whatever, a small convenience store, and all they're trying to do is make a buck. We have to be a little more reasonable and forthcoming. I mean, even if you amend it to where it's closer to the property, within 10 feet of the building, I mean, ballards on ballard signs.
Yeah.
I'd be the
They're
first one to
incidental, but
say, they're incidental, but they're trying to.
Yeah.
Right, I understand that. They're trying to push sports drinks or, lottery tickets, whatever it may be. These people are just honest people trying to make a living. They're part of our direct community. Not that the big boxes and the corporations aren't, but these people live here. They raise their families here. This is where they make their living. And I think they truly care. And I think there has to be a level of trust also. I mean, I know it's a big leap of faith, and I know there will be abusers, but we still technically, our code enforcement people have the ability to go out and deal with those people if it does get out of hand, if it becomes unreasonable.
I think what I find offensive is the guys that put the signs out that say, blank painter, and they put like the realtor signs, and you see them all over the place.
Right.
Or even, a guy pulls off MacArthur Road and sets up a truck, and out of the back of a truck, he's selling ribeyes, okay, for a discounted price.
We got into business of privilege and whatnot again with what you
But,
just brought up.
what I'm trying to say is, meanwhile, you got another company trying to survive, and I think, Lee, if you disagree, please tell me, this thing on temporary signs is a problem for enforcement, both on the availability of people to enforce it. Number two, the businesses aren't happy about the situation, and it needs to be looked at. And I think that's what we need to do. So that's why I'm saying, go through the thing with Jack, and if he sits down and says, okay, this is the case, go right back to the board as a whole and say, let's all print a copy of this out and a workshop, let's tear it apart and find out what other stuff does apply and does not apply. We have a business right now that for access to his business, he had a sign made up that he parks his car at certain spots and hangs his sign in the car so he can find his business. That's what he does. Think about that, okay? And I think it's just needs to be readdressed. And that's what I'm asking you to do. And I'll be the first to sit down and say, if we can't come to terms after that period of time, we gotta go back to the old way, it's easy. Just undo the ordinance and go back to where it was. But we need to give relief some way, shape, or form to these businesses and people.
But you just said it wouldn't be easy because of it going through zoning and whatnot, that we'd have to go through all of
But
that.
it wouldn't be easy, it's just, it's a
Time.
process.
It takes
It's
time.
a 3-month
It takes time.
process, basically.
And
to
again,
get it adopted.
I understand everything that you're bringing up, and there are different people that impacts differently. But to me, it's giving carte blanche to everybody out there because, well, you're going to go ahead and say it's litter. That's not how it's going to be to those people. We can put out as many and as often as we want. And you're going to say, well, that's not what we meant. Well, I'm sorry, a sign is a sign is a sign. And we don't get into, well, this is the service entrance to the car dealer. That's not advertising, that's showing you directions, so you don't have this
That's
traffic
a different
jam.
type of sign in
But
the
no,
ordinance.
but you brought that up before with the car dealer, and
No, they're marking cars.
I understand that. I do use the same road, honest. So I understand that. What I'm saying is, where is it then that you're gonna go ahead and say, nope, that's not, this is, that's not, this is? I don't know.
That's what we're asking, if you could just look into
That's
it.
what I'm asking us to go back and look at something that's not working. Or else another way, how about we put in $70,000 in next year's budget for a sign guy to go out and check the signs in the township, make sure everybody's treated equally, and do that. Do that then, because it's not fair, okay, that this person gets nailed and that person does not. It just isn't fair. And when you use the term sign and temporary signs, I mean, there are just certain things that businesses use or need, and whether it says a flag that says I'm open today or closed. If I look at this and I open my office on Sunday and I want to go out and put a temporary sign in the front that's a T sign that says open Sunday from 12 to noon, I can't do it because it's a temporary sign in my business. Can't do it. Impossible.
You can do it for 20 days, 3 times
I have to
out
go
of the
file
year.
a permit for 20 days, open and close, it's got to be
Just
consecutive.
being wise.
Yeah,
I'm just-
well, but no, so
Yeah.
what am I gonna do? I'm just gonna put the damn sign out and do what you
Yeah.
want. And that's the problem, it's arbitrary. And that's why I'm saying, let's go back and revisit it, because there's other things
I'm willing to do
besides
that.
that in this ordinance that's an issue.
Well,
I'm
and I
willing to do so, just for the record.
Pardon me?
I'm willing to do so, just for the record.
Okay? I don't know about anybody else.
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
This went in front of the L&L, correct? And what was,
And
what,
because of what we have right now, that's why it didn't go any further.
what was the consensus from L&L? Just simply put.
Impossible to do,
Okay.
to change it.
So L&L discussed this with staff and decided that it was impossible to do. So we have that coming in. I'm kind of trying to understand, I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong. I'm not saying what you're saying is right. I want some information because I hear a lot of stuff floating around. What's the benefit of repealing the ordinance for 6 months?
I had already, and I think I heard Mr. Snyder say this, and to be clear, you can't do that.
Right.
You
No,
can't.
I understand.
and-
It's an
and-
amendment,
right.
amendment to the ordinance.
It's an amendment to the ordinance to change.
The temporary sign, I understand.
Well, I also, and do not recommend changing the ordinance to eliminate temporary signs.
Talked about
Because
that.
if you did that, you would allow any sign anywhere. So instead, what I spoke to Mr. Snyder about and what he asked me to begin working on for, and any of you can propose an ordinance. So what he asked me to work on would be an ordinance that would make temporary signs a permitted use. It's not, that allow temporary signs.
Without a permit.
Without a permit, and with some other restrictions. It wouldn't be, there have to be some restrictions. It has to be for a time period. We talked about a time period. We talked about a number per lot, but without a permit. Now, that would still leave for enforcement. I mean, you're still gonna, if it says that a temporary sign means a sign that's up for no more than 30 days, if the zoning officer sees one that's up for 31 days, he's gonna go out, if he, he could go out and cite
So-
those.
so
Let me ask you this, if they take it down after 30 and put it up on day 31, they're officially within
Well, I mean, it
the law.
depends on the ordinance
Right.
needs to be needs to be objective, not subjective. It needs to allow a zoning officer to enforce based on written objective criteria. So typically, that kind of ordinance would say a temporary sign can be up for 30 days. I'm making this up here, could be up for 30 days, and then must come down for
Okay, so.
some period of
Which is
time.
kind of
I-
where we're at now.
Right, I get this, okay, so to kind of like bring it together, though, you're saying minimum of 90 days to get this through, till we have an actual ordinance that's written.
Would it be pending ordinance? Would the pending ordinance doctrine apply once we advertise the first hearing?
I don't see a problem because this is still gonna permit, temporary signs are currently permitted in the ordinance. It's just
Yes.
gonna change how they're permitted, so I don't, Mr. Pledgen, because it's an amendment to the zoning ordinance, the board needs to consider it initially. It needs to refer it to the Whitehall Township Planning Commission and the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission for review and comment. And then it's a two hearing
So
ordinance.
probably 120 days is more realistic.
90 is the absolute minimum
minimum,
if we
so.
time it
Right.
perfect.
So 120 days,
Correct.
and then we're going to take another 6 months to hash out revisions to the ordinance. Is that correct, Mr. Snyder?
No, you could be
No.
doing it at the same time as he's going through the
Okay,
arrangement.
so,
It's all right.
all right, so we'll say 4 months to move the ordinance through, another 2 months to hash out, and then another 4 months beyond that to adopt a new ordinance, because that still has to go to the Whitehall Township Planning Commission and the LVPC and have 2 hearings. So
I said
we're
by
at 10
spring.
months.
Yep, spring of next year.
Yeah, we're at 10 months, and I kind of see that, I don't see the benefit of doing phase 1 to just gain 4 months.
There's a reason why phase 1 is being put in, because it went to L&I, and L&I came back and said, I think at the workshop, it's too hard, it can't be done. Okay, that's their answer. So we accept their answer, or as commissioners, we sit here and say, guess what? It's difficult, but you know what? Difficult things have to be worked on, and this is one of them. If we weren't a retail center, then I'd sit down and say, that's a different arrangement. We're a retail center. And you go look at the dockets of the guys who are getting nailed, and it's not the big boxes, it's the small guys, and it's because they didn't pick up a permit. And you know what? That is just something that I have a hard time with when you can drive down the road and get some of the other stuff that's going on. It's really, really hard. And we
Well,
can argue.
I'd like to interrupt though, Ken. It's
go ahead.
not that enforcement notices are not sent out to the other properties. It's whether they choose to comply. Citations are not immediately issued. There's an enforcement notice that's sent out. There's an opportunity to comply. If they do not comply, the next step is citation. There's a lot more enforcement notices that go out than citations are issued. So
Right.
you can't make the presumption that nobody else other than the small businesses are getting tagged. That's incorrect.
Okay, so,
And I'm not disagreeing with you that this is challenging. I just want to clarify that I don't feel comfortable that there's a representation being made that there's inequitable enforcement, because there is not.
was U-Haul notified?
I'd have to go back and
Okay.
look, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, let's just talk where I drive, okay?
I
U-Haul-
agree, Ken, but you know what? The way that it works now, because of the limitations of staff, you know how we get notified of most of these signs? Because somebody else complained about it. And we cross that bridge, then we go to the next bridge. Signs are not the only job of the zoning officer.
Well, I think the commissions have a responsibility as a retail center to pick up our things and look at it and deal with the issue and not sit here and say it's too hard.
And
Because
I
you know
don't
what?
disagree with
It's
any
been
of
too
that.
hard for many years, where you and I have talked about this thing going back and forth, and it's not just the first time. And there's other things that I brought up tonight, says, oh, that's really hard. Well, sitting up here is not an easy job, because if it's the case, everybody else would be up here. And if you want to sit up here and sit down and throw this in my thing and don't read it, guess what? I didn't have to spend 45 minutes on the phone with the attorney. I didn't have to read this. I didn't have to look at other things. I could have said, you know what? LJ, let's go out for dinner tonight, and that's what I could have done. but that's not the way it is. And he's gotten complaints, I've gotten complaints, and when I see two businesses side by side, I ask myself, why? And that's just a big question. And if we don't want to tackle it as a Board of Commissioners, then you know what? You're not going to worry about the Berkheimers and everybody else, because it all takes work. That's what it takes, work to go and dig into this.
I'm here to do the job that you
I
guys want us to do.
my problem is not with you, my problem is up here. And
Well, and-
Randy already
and-
said yes.
And Ken, I'm less time on the board than you are, but I have to say that I kind of disagree with that comment. I mean, I think all of us want to do something up here, and I think we agree that there's something wrong with this ordinance. But I also don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And by spending the time to have this amendment, why not just fix it? And regardless of what L&L said, and that's why I asked, because I never heard what L&L said. I just heard they said no.
So-
Okay, and I respect their opinion. That's why they're on L&L, and they're perfectly entitled, just like you and I are, to make a statement. So, that being said, I think we need to discuss what changes we want to make, and then make those changes.
So here's how it works under the charter. You're 100% correct. Goes to L&L, L&L says yes or no. We can form an ad hoc committee on this board to deal specifically with that, okay? Last time I asked for something for an ad hoc committee, they didn't want to do an ad hoc committee. So what you got is every time I bring something up, they say, oh, we don't want to do that. So if you want to form an ad hoc committee to work on this instead of L&L, I'm fine, but I don't want to just sit here and say, oh, let it go. Now, if that's what I'm one vote. And if everybody says let it go, then it's a closed issue. But I'm going to tell you right now that every time we have these problems that have been neglected or not dealt with in this township, wait till budget time comes, it's going to be real interesting, okay? That we can't just put this stuff in the back burner and say, don't worry about it, because that's what has happened. That's what's happened for many, many years. This is a sign problem, okay? And I can't regulate how the guy enforces it, but I'll tell you right now, it's not being done, in my opinion, the way I see it. And that's where I'm at.
Wait a minute, this has been going on pretty long here. These sign things have been a problem before I got on the board.
Yes.
And it's been that way, because you have a finite system here of people and money to throw at problems. So what you try to do is try to do it as best you can with what you have. Not going ahead, I mean, you threw out $70,000 out there for somebody, and again, that might have been that's fine. It's just that everybody on here has a different way of, how should we do this, how should we do that? And it's something that's very, very, very hard to do with what we have as tools. And you just think that we'll get an ad hoc thing and that'll take care of it, we'll come up with, and you might come up with good suggestions, I don't know. But you have to put time in that, and I don't know, we can go ahead and do your ad hoc committee, you could be the leader of it, and how many people must be on this thing, I don't know, but you can go ahead and spend that time that some of us don't have.
How much time did L&L spend in reviewing this, may I ask?
That, we spent about 10, 15 minutes because of what's gone on before. This is something that's been dealt with before. You think that's the first time, oh, well, Ken Snyder brought it up, let's look at this a lot longer. No, we've dealt with this before. The same exact problems came back. This is what needs to be done if you have the people that you can do it with. Just because you hope something will happen doesn't mean it will happen.
So I spend more than 15 minutes reading the freaking ordinance,
I
okay?
understand
So
that.
no, hear me out, all right?
Okay.
So if I looked at this ordinance, the first thing I would do is say, no permit required. All the regulations would stay in place except for, okay, it was this, I think we talked about the size of a sign as a possibility because it was 3,200 square feet, okay?
32.
32
feet
You're
if it's
freaking
one
me.
side,
Right?
64 if it's.
And we looked at,
Is the sign bigger than the Hollywood sign out in
the problem is
California?
nobody files for permits. And when you file for permit and you don't file for permit, you still have the problem. If you eliminate this arrangement, work your way back, it's better than what you currently got. So if you don't want to do it, move forward.
But I just have a question. So if you file for a permit, you don't file for a permit, you're still gonna have the signs. I understand what you're saying, and does there need to be a fix or some type of change? Yeah. But also going back to L&L, what we ended on saying it was too hard to do, is that what we
That's what I
said?
understand.
I don't think, was it
It's
that
the,
workshop?
the enforcement is something that can't be done for everything. It's the enforcement issue. You can't, and again, it's what you brought up in the beginning. This guy here gets something, this guy over here doesn't. And they're right next to each other. That I can't control. All as I know is it
10
wasn't
minutes
like
in L and I is what you spent
L
on
and
this.
L.
No, L&L.
L and L, 10 minutes.
We talked to staff, we talked to the zoning officer, we talked to Lee Rackus.
I don't think it was 10 minutes, honestly.
Yeah, it was longer. We
It was
were-
longer
A
than
little bit
that.
longer
Yeah.
than 10 minutes.
Well, and again, maybe it's
10
I
minutes.
know you're averaging, but also, I don't think we need more discussion on this. I think we understand what Ken wants, and I think if he wants to start an ad hoc, do it.
If you wanna-
Or we go and we decide, okay, maybe we need an amendment to this. I don't think we need to discuss it any further, because we're not getting anywhere.
And I would say, whatever changes you think are appropriate, maybe zoning can look at it and say, okay, I can live with that, that makes sense, or this
Do you
is,
think it's worthwhile to make changes to the current zoning ordinance?
Look, I think a sign's gonna go up whether we want a sign to go up or not. I think there's people who follow the ordinances, and I think there's people that don't give a whatever about an ordinance. You know, you take away the permitting, sure. But the people who don't care about that process anyway aren't even gonna know you changed the ordinance, because they're not looking anyway. You know what I mean? I understand what you're saying, and sure, we can look at it, and maybe, but how do you even gauge to see if it was beneficial or if it worked? I get what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying, but I just think signs are irritating, and yep, some people get fined for that, some people go to court. The big corporations could care less about a citation, paying maybe $100. They could care less. But does it hurt the small mom and pop? Sure. Are we gonna fix it and correct it by amending an ordinance? Probably not. You know, probably not, but
Relief to the small mom and pop, the answer is yes, I would do so.
I mean, I don't want to belabor the point, but I don't know how you're going to do that.
What I was gonna say is, Mr. Snyder spoke to me, he said some other things here, I wrote them down. You know, I'm willing to draft a proposed ordinance for, certainly if you wanted to create a committee, you could, but I would say the more normal process would be, I'll draft the ordinance that Mr. Snyder requested, put it on an agenda, the whole board could talk about it at a workshop or at a meeting, and say what you like or don't like before you move it forward or not move it forward.
Can I work with Lee and Jack on that issue?
yeah, I have no problem with that. I want staff to be comfortable with whatever any changes we
I would
make.
assume you would have to work with these people. Somebody knows the law, somebody knows the regulations.
I don't go to her directly without going through Joe. I would not do that.
And again, I guess I'm different. When I first started out in this, I went to the department heads all the time, because that's what they're there for you to learn. You ain't gonna learn well, I'll first ask Joe to ask this person, what does that do? It lets him know that you're gonna ask somebody.
Well, I think it might be beneficial too, if you're going to reexamine it. I mean, there's other communities in the state that are similar to us, to find out what everybody's doing. We're not the only ones facing this problem. Like I said, signs are much more prolific and easier to get and cheaper than they ever were, so.
I'll start by working with you directly, and then after you and I hack out some things, then we'll get Jack involved. And then we'll talk to the mayor to make sure that, based on the complaints he's getting, that's the case. And I'll come back to the board and say, here's the general arrangement, and we're gonna look at the overall thing completely from top to bottom. It may take us 3 months, but that's what we'll do. Fair enough? And that's the way I'm gonna go on that issue.
I guess the only thing I would like to see, consider frequency, location, you know. We can leave it out that somebody's gonna put a sign every 10 feet. You'll see that on MacArthur Road.
So I made notes. All those things, I will just say, I think the comment there was a good one, and I can certainly consider it, but Mr. Snyder or Lee, if you know of other municipalities that you would say are similar, tell me. I can find their zoning ordinances.
Montgomery Township in Montgomery County
That's what I was thinking
is
of.
very similar, and Upper
West
Marion,
Mifflin Borough. and-
Upper Marion because of the King of Prussia.
I was thinking of,
Allegheny County.
well, I'm not sure about, I'll look.
We have references,
The
right?
Montgomery is
Montgomery,
a
I
really
selected
good
one,
one,
so I'm
yeah.
positive
That seemed, as soon as, that's what was in my mind as well, so, okay.
Done with this now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Lee.
Run away.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Ken.
Okay, we'll start out with you, Mr. Snyder, your report.
My report? I have nothing other than I was over at the Sewer Authority last month. Everything's fine over there, and I have nothing else. I'm on vacation for your meeting this month. And on the zoning, I can't talk about the Jack Gross, Attorney Gross, I can't talk about the zoning issue because in this month's zoning, that company's back on again for a zoning hearing.
Why don't you, let's talk about it per.
Yes.
Because I'd prefer to give legal advice.
Yes. I can't, so that'll be an issue.
Commissioner Pelagian?
So I attended the Rec Commission meeting on June 24th, and Ray Biak, I believe that's the correct pronunciation. Biak, okay, I called it Biak and somebody else said Biak, so. Ray was there and became the liaison between Arrington Rail Trail. I will say that both Commissioner Warren and Commissioner Sider also attended that meeting with a lively discussion about some recreation issues. The Recreation Commission has asked me to continue to attend these meetings, even though I'm not the liaison. They've requested, they said I bring something to the table. I don't know what, but, so I'm going to continue to do that. I also, there was no IRT meeting. I did attend the EAC meeting, which was very interesting, and unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the IRT or the EAC meeting this month. I have conflicts with work, so beyond that, I hope everybody had a good Independence Day. Thank you.
A couple of points. We did have the first two concerts at the Pavilion at Whitehall Parkway, which was a great success considering the heat that we had. The first concert, I think, started out with about 200 people. I think it peaked close to 300, but it was a very hot day. I do like the fact that Brandon has different bands coming in for different age groups, so that was his goal for the 5. And the staff are doing a tremendous job there. One thing I wanted to bring up is Joe Wilfinger, a longtime volunteer in Whitehall Township, was a strong advocate for the Shade Tree Committee. I think it would be smiling upon us to find out 3 people replaced him, but he had passed this week. He had passed, yes. And there was an expose done on the morning call about Joe. He always prided himself on being different. He wore a turtle around his neck. He was very fond of Native Americans, trying to educate, children. And I think in the article there was something that said we can save the world one person at a time. So, I mean, I just remember Joe as being someone that was always involved. So, I think it was fitting tonight that we were able to fit 3 qualified people on that board. So, and I think a year ago, February 2023, I think I sent an email to the administration about, looking at where it makes sense to put security cameras on our township facilities, places where we might have episodes of crime or vandalism. And so I'd like the administration to still look at that. The last we left at Lenore and Mr. Myers were looking at, what it would cost to expand some of that. And, I'm all for having somebody at the township manage those cameras. If we're gonna have them, they have to be working. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Commissioner Tia?
Yeah, I just want to quick apologize. I guess I don't need to apologize, but last week I was absent. It was our graduation at our high school that I work at. So that's why I was not here last month. I think I said last month. I do want to just address something because I did go back and watch that meeting on YouTube. And I'm just going to say this because I think it needs to be said. Just some house rules. I'm a teacher, so I think the first rule everybody in here learns, maybe in preschool and kindergarten, is just to treat people with respect. Yes, and that goes for everybody. That's for us up here. That's for everybody out there. I just get bothered watching people come up, or sometimes it's us and we're at fault for it, but just treating each other with respect. I just watched that meeting last month, and I was just truly bothered by how people were spoken to. We all work our hardest, we all are professionals, everybody in the room, and people don't deserve to be spoken to the way that they are sometimes at these meetings. So I just wanted to address it, feel like it needed to be addressed. And again, that goes for everybody. I'm not throwing that at the people that are sitting out there or us. It's for everybody in the room. It's a house rule. And I just think that needed to be said. That's all. Thank you.
So Randy, thank you for bringing that up and for mentioning that. I appreciate that. And I don't really have anything except for, ladies, members of the EAC, we thank you for being involved.
Okay, and for me, I remember Mr. Wolfinger a lot when I first started, and he was a special guy, and just so the other people, it was a real turtle shell, but it wasn't a live turtle. So, because you can draw all kinds of
And just-
things that crazy with your head.
And just explanation on that, he was fond of the Native Americans, and the Lenape Indians, I think their branch of the Lehigh Valley were the turtles, so that's what I've learned from him.
No, and like I
I always
said,
wondered.
he was a real nice guy, and you would know too, because him and Mario were buddies. I mean, it just, when you saw one, you usually saw the other at whatever event that you went to, so. And also, for us to remember the passing of Bob George. He was somebody that I met when I first started walking around, trying to get votes and whatnot. He gave me, encouragement, and that's all you can ask for sometimes. But he was on so many different areas in the whole township on different boards and whatnot. And it's not until you do this a lot, and I know the people in the audience here, they're on different boards and everything, that you give of yourself, and the time that's given, you don't look at it, another night I wasted. No, you look at it, no, I wanted to get that done, we got this done, oh, don't we feel better about ourselves and our community? And I think that's what, when I see somebody that was in it as long as Mr. George, and then met some of his children, and again, it was something that he passed on to them. So it's, again, all of these people that you just remember them when you can. I don't think anything else that you can do, but just remember them, and it should make you feel good. So, Mayor's report.
Okay, I have a couple things. I'd like to thank EAC, I'd like to thank Deb and Karen. We had and all their members, we had a very successful recycling event. We collected over 46,000 pounds of electronics. We haven't gotten the numbers for the shredding, but on average, it runs like three or 4 tons. Yeah, it's a lot. I'd like to thank the kids from the high school, football players, cheerleaders, wonderful kids. I learned a lot that day. Garbage bids, the bid opening is Thursday, July 11th, this coming Thursday. God bless us. We have 2 bidders. We're a captive audience, and I just want to warn you, we're going to do everything that we can possibly do, not to lower services, but save our ratepayers as much as we possibly can, but it's going to be very challenging. Parkway concerts, like Jeff said, the first 2 were very successful, very well run. Props to Brandon. It was his concept and idea. Our staff, Parks and Rec, Public Works, you name it, did a phenomenal job. Michelle was a big part of it. She did a phenomenal job, as she did with the recycling event also. The rebid on the police station we talked about, we have those dates set up. We hired a fire inspector, Madison Belts. She was promoted from within. She was a longtime Whitehall firefighter. She's wonderful, and I think she's going to serve us well into the future. I just want to say something about Jack Myers. There was something implied before that was he in some way. I've known Jack for over 20 years. Jack has the most impeccable professional relationship. He's the most professional impeccable man I think I've ever met, and I'm blessed to have him as my deputy, and he always has the best interest of this township. I believe it's in his heart. He doesn't only work here, but he lives here. And he takes it all very seriously and works very hard for the people. And I'm blessed to have him, and we should be blessed to have him. So any allegations that he is ever corrupted or anything like that couldn't be farther from the truth. And the Copley Creek probably violated some rules, but we removed some obstructions. I witnessed some pretty serious damming that took place in there. There are DEP regulations. We didn't violate any DEP regulations in doing so, but I felt it was necessary. Public Works did a stand-up job. They went in, we removed the obstructions with equipment. We never disturbed the creek, any wildlife or habitat, but I felt it was necessary because you never know when we're going to get that 10-year, 100-year storm, and with all the obstructions, I wanted to open it up so this facility wouldn't be flooded, all the adjoining homes, and all the rec facilities. And we've had problems over the years, and hopefully that'll help resolve some of the problems, but there's a lot of challenges out there. And, I wish the state would be a little more proactive, but I can't make them do what they don't want to do. And that's all I have. Thank you.
And obviously, there's no treasurer's report. So,
Motion
to adjourn. Okay, do I have that? Okay, so, thank you for
First.
coming.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know.
Yes. We should announce.
Oh, executive. Okay. We're having an executive session right now.